Okay.
No, I mean, at some point, we're all getting.
We just comment to it. I will say your comments. Yeah. Start out. And I'll call it. It's fine. Are we allowed to take questions?
Hi, Carl. We see you. If you could turn off your camera for us. Thank you. Give me just one moment, Commissioner. SCCTV, are you ready to go? Okay, just one moment, please. Just a reminder about microphones. Thank you. And on your mark, Commissioner, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Commission President Hamdi Mohammed reconvening the regular meeting of May 14, 2024. The time is now 12:04 p.m. We're meeting today in person at the Port of Seattle Headquarter Building, Commission Chamber, and virtually via Microsoft Teams. Clerk Hart, please call the roll for the commissioners in attendance today.
Thank you. Beginning with Commissioner Cho.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Felleman.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Hasagawa.
Present.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mohammed.
Present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum established.
Thank you so much. A few housekeeping items before we begin today. For everyone in the meeting room, please turn your cell phones to silent. For anyone participating on Microsoft Teams, please mute your speakers when not actively speaking or presenting. Please keep your cameras off unless you are a member of the commission or the executive director participating virtually, or you are a member of the staff in a presentation mode and actively addressing the commission. Members of the public addressing the commission during public comment, please turn on your cameras when your name is called to speak, and then you'll turn them back off again at the conclusion of your remarks. For anyone at the dais, please turn off the speakers on the computers and silence your devices. Please also remember to address your request to be acknowledged to speak through the chair, and wait to speak until you have been recognized. You'll turn your microphones on and off as needed. All of the items noted here will ensure a smoother meeting. Thank you all. All the votes today will be taken by a roll call method, so it is clear for anyone participating virtually how votes are casted. Commissioners will say aye or nay when their names are called. We're meeting here today on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people, with whom we share a commitment to steward these natural resources for generations to come. This meeting is digitally being recorded and may be viewed or heard at any time on the Port's website and may be rebroadcasted by King County Television. Now, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. The first item of business today is the approval of the agenda. As a reminder, if a commissioner wishes to make a general comment for or against an item on the consent agenda, it is not necessary to pull the item. It's not necessary to pull the item from the consent agenda. Rather, a commissioner may offer supporting or opposing comments later in this meeting once we get to the part of the that part of the agenda. These comments are in order once the motion to approve the consent agenda has been made. However, it is appropriate at this time if a commissioner wants to ask questions of staff or wishes to have a dialogue on a consent agenda item to request the item be pulled for a separate discussion. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent agenda or any motions to rearrange the order of the day? Hearing none. Commissioners, the question is now on the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Wonderful. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any objections to approval of the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Moving us along, there is no special orders scheduled for today, so we'll move forward. The next item on our agenda is the Executive Director's report. Executive Director Metrick, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to begin my remarks by thanking Deputy Executive Director Karen Goon for leading in my place at last Commission meeting while I was away on business travel. Thanks, Karen, and all the staff that filled in while I was away. I'd also like to note that last week was Public Service Recognition Week. I believe that public service is a calling, so it's right for public employers like the Port of Seattle to take time to reach out to thank and recognize those that work in public service. I'd like to also express my gratitude to everyone in our workforce that participated in the events for Public Service Recognition Week last week. Especially our Human Resources team for taking the lead on organizing the various celebratory events throughout the port, the many different locations that we have throughout the port. Visiting with staff at various work locations and seeing what they do day in and day out is truly a highlight of my job, and I appreciated them spending time with me. I do encourage all staff who have something to share to invite the executive leadership team, including myself, to their work site to see what everyone's working on. I'd also like to wish everyone this month a happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander month. During May, we take time to honor, recognize, and celebrate the innumerable contributions, vibrant cultures, and rich heritage of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. I look forward to the reading of the proclamation honoring these contributions at our next Commission meeting. Commissioners, in the last few weeks, Port employees were recognized by external organizations for their stewardship of financial and environmental resources. Last month, the Government Finance Officers Association provided the Port of Seattle with its Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 2024 budget document. To achieve the award, the budget document must meet nationally recognized best practices related to its effectiveness as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. If this award seems familiar, it's because this represents the 17th consecutive year the team has received this award. While it may feel it has become routine, on the contrary, it takes a lot of work and it demonstrates the Port's ongoing commitment to the highest standards of fiscal stewardship and excellence in financial management. In other good news, our accounting and financial reporting team also achieved an ultra-clean audit outcome with no audit findings or recommendations from the external auditors for all of their 2023 audits. This outcome affirms and validates the excellence of our accounting and financial reporting team and help make the Port a highly effective public agency. Also last month, the Seattle 2030 District awarded the Port their Leadership Vision Award for our Sustainable Evaluation Framework. The Sustainable Evaluation Framework is a comprehensive approach to building sustainability into our capital projects. Authorized by the Commission in 2020, SEF projects come from 2020 alone have avoided almost 600 tons of annual CO2 emissions, as well as benefiting other environmental areas and people-centered features. This is a port-wide program and win. To share the pride of the award and to thank the broader team, the award will be visiting, kind of like the Stanley Cup, if you know how that moves around from place to place. We'll move to various staff meetings with a number of different groups, including maritime and aviation project management, planning, engineering, aviation finance, and others. Congratulations to everyone who was involved for this recognition, and for the Commission, especially Commissioner Fellman, for your leadership on sustainability in the sustainable environmental evaluation framework. Commissioners, later this week, I'll be signing a memorandum of understanding with the Minority Business Development Agency, a bureau of the United States Department of Commerce, to foster the growth and global competitiveness of minority business enterprises. We will host the signing ceremony at our headquarters building this Thursday. I want to acknowledge Meehan Rice, Diversity and Contracting Director, Dave McFadden, our Managing Director for Economic Development, and Commissioner Sam Cho for bringing this partnership to fruition. Moving to today's Commission meeting, I'd like to highlight just a couple items. Item 8D on our consent agenda today is a contract related to the operation and management of the ramp tower at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. SEA is the 11th busiest airport in the United States, serving over 50 million passengers annually. However, as you know, we're not even in the top 20 airports when it comes to our actual footprint. On slightly under 4 square miles, we have an intricate and highly compacted layout of taxi lanes, aprons, and terminals. This can lead to congestion and inefficiencies in aircraft movement on the ground if not properly managed. The ramp control tower operated by the port is an important asset that provides advisory instructions for aircraft moving to and from these areas. The ramp control tower improves safety, efficiency, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions by eliminating gridlock and facilitating aircraft movements. Item 8G on our consent agenda is related to waterfront signage. The City of Seattle and Friends of Waterfront Park are putting the finishing touches on the new waterfront park. Combined with the Elliott Bay Connections project, this creates 59 acres of new park in Seattle. Our goal is to ensure that visitors and residents see the working waterfront and port facilities as part of that experience along our waterfront. Item 8K on our consent agenda is related to the 2025 art program CIP at the airport. You'll receive a request for maritime art acquisition at our next Commission meeting. We have 2 significant aviation items coming forward today as new business and presentations and staff reports. Item 10C15 is the design and construction authorization for the S Concourse, which is critical for investment to extend the useful life of a key facility for our international gateway. Our team worked hard to phase this work in a way that minimizes operational disruptions and preserves customer service. Item 11A is the SEA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable 2023 Annual Report, which highlights the collaboration between the airport and nearport community leaders to tackle the issues of most relevance to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport's neighboring cities. We see very real outcomes as a result of this partnership, including successful advocacy to include START priorities in the 5-year Federal Aviation Administration reauthorization, which was passed by the United States Senate last Thursday and is going before the U.S. House today. Finally, I want to offer my support for an order the Commission is considering removing requirements for college degrees for jobs unless legally required. This order recognizes the value of experience for those competing for positions here at the Port of Seattle. I appreciate the many conversations I've had, not just about this order, but about the value of education. I'm proud of the many ways the Port supports education, including our tuition reimbursement program. I hope we continue to have an open dialogue about removing barriers and supporting our employees in pursuit of education and careers as well. Commissioners, this concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Metrick, for that update. We are now at the committee reports. I will kick it over to Erica Chung, our strategic advisor. Erica, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Commission President Mohammed and Commissioners and Executive Director Metrick. I have 3 committee reports for you today. On April 23rd, Commission President Mohammed and Vice President Hasagawa convened the Airport Workforce Conditions Ad Hoc Committee. First, the committee heard initial feedback from our consultant Imagine Institute regarding child care needs. We learned that 70% of airport workers reside in extreme child care access deserts 92% of the jobs posted on airport jobs require work outside of the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. timeframe, and that majority of employer respondents report challenges hiring, retaining employees due to childcare challenges. Their final recommendation to the Commission is on July 9th. Commissioners also received a legal update on the health care for airport workers question. Commissioners directed a survey of airport workers asking about their health care needs in as efficient a time frame as possible. Finally, Commissioners heard an update on our third-party code of conduct efforts. This effort will launch in June. On April 30th, the Equity and Workforce Development Committee was convened by Commissioners Hasegawa and Calkins. There was one item for briefing and discussion, an update and finding on the South King County International Public Market Study. This item is also scheduled for a presentation later at today's Commission meeting. On May 8th, Commissioners Cho and Fellman convened the Sustainability, Environment, and Climate Committee. There were two items on the agenda for briefing and discussions. First was the airline realignment under the Sustainability Evaluation Framework. Staff evaluated 34 sustainability strategies compared to port's baseline standards to reduce carbon emission and energy use, as well as evaluating equity and access to improve daily work environment of employees. Commissioner Fellman asked for visibility on how we meet code compared to how we exceed code and for added detail on various alternatives assessed. Staff also shared that the Port of Seattle received a Leadership Vision Award specifically for the Sustainable Evaluation Framework policy. The second item was the Maritime Climate and Air Action Plan 2023 implementation update. The MCAP was adopted in 2021 is the Port's implementation plan for the Northwest Ports Clean Air Strategy and charts a course for the Port of Seattle to achieve its maritime-related climate and air goals. Commissioner learned that in 2023, staff made progress on 34 of 43 MCAP strategies and were very complimentary of this year's accomplishments, which include ongoing efforts to increase the efficiency of buildings, vehicles, and vessels, and use renewable fuels and clean energy sources. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica, for that update. Are there any questions for Erica Chung? Hearing none, thank you again. Moving us along, we are now at the public comment section of the agenda. The Port of Seattle Commission welcomes public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the Commission in its deliberations. Before we take public comment, let's review our rules for in-person and virtual public comment. Clerk Hart, please play the recording.
The Port of Seattle Commission welcomes you to our meeting today. As noted, public comment is an important part of the public process, and the Port of Seattle Commission thanks you for joining us. Before proceeding, we will overview the rule.
I apologize. We've really been having problems with this recording.
The Port of Seattle Commission welcomes you to our meeting today. As noted, public comment is an important part of the public process, and the Port of Seattle Commission thanks you for joining us. Before proceeding, we will overview the rules governing public comment for your general information. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak unless otherwise revised by the presiding officer for the purposes of meeting efficiency, and the speaker shall keep their remarks within the allotted time provided. A timer will appear on the screen, and a buzzer will sound at the end of the speaker's comment period. The Commission accepts comments on items appearing on its agenda and items related to the conduct of port business. The presiding officer will ask speakers to limit their comments to these topics. This rule applies to both introductory and concluding remarks. Disruptions of Commission public meetings are prohibited. General disruptions include, but are not limited to, the following: speaking before being recognized by the presiding officer, holding or placing banners and signs in the meeting room in a way that endangers others or obstructs the flow of people or view of others at the meeting, intentionally disrupting, disturbing, or otherwise impeding attendance or participation at a meeting, refusing to follow the direction of the presiding officer or security personnel, attempting to use the comment time for purposeful delay without conveying a discernible message, using the comment period to assist in a campaign for election of any person to any office or for the promotion of or opposition to any ballot proposition except when addressing action being taken by the Commission on a ballot proposition appearing on its agenda, directing public comments to the audience, engaging in abusive or harassing behavior, including but not limited to derogatory remarks based on age, race, color, national origin, ancestry, religion, disability, pregnancy, sex, gender, sexual orientation, transgender status, marital status, or any other category protected by law, the use of obscene or profane language and gestures, assaults or other threatening behavior, and sexual misconduct or sexual harassment. For safety purposes, individuals are asked not to physically approach commissioners or staff at the meeting table during the meeting. Individuals may provide written public comment before or after the meeting, and in addition, speakers may offer written materials to the commission clerk for distribution during their testimony to the commission. A detailed list of the public comment rules is available through the commission clerk. If a meeting is disrupted by an individual in attendance in the meeting room or by an individual providing public comment in person or virtually, the port will impose progressive consequences that may result in exclusion from future meetings. Written materials provided to the clerk will be included in today's meeting record. The clerk has a list of those prepared to speak. When your name is called, please come to the testimony table or unmute yourself if joining virtually. Repeat your name for the record and state your topic related to an item on the agenda or related to the conduct of port business. For those joining virtually, when you have concluded your remarks, please turn off your camera and mute your microphone. Our public comment period will now commence. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for playing the recording. Clerk Hart, please call the first speaker.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and get our timer up.
Wonderful.
There we go. And our first speaker today is Alex Zimmerman. When you're ready, Alex, please restate your name for the record and your agenda item or topic related to the conduct of port business, please.
I remember my name.
Thank you, Alex.
Today.
I'll start the timer at that time.
I'm lucky, so I remember my name. Is working?
I will start it after you introduce yourself
Okay,
again and
yeah.
your topic, Alex. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Hi. My name Alex Zimmerman.
And your topic, Alex?
Oh, but this not will be...
I'll start it after you give us your topic,
Oh,
Alex.
okay, no
I want
problem.
to make sure you have your full 2 minutes.
Absolutely, no problem. My topic, public testimony procedure.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name Alex Zimmerman. Yeah, I remember my name. This little bit surprised me. Yeah, and I'm talking about public testimony procedure. This idiotic 2 pages, you know what this means. Come in Seattle in 2015, only for one man, Alex Zimmerman. They have all newspaper talk about this as Alex Zimmerman rules. So what has happened for 10 years? All this Democrat mafia, you know what this means, junta start use these rules, who by definition harassment and pure crime. They violate all constitution, all court decision, all of it, without exception. Who care about this? When we have a city who controlled by minority, for example, here is almost 80% minority, but Seattle have only 30% minority. So this very interesting for me is this very low-class people. So not surprise me. So this primitive low-class people make these stupid rules. And how these people can operate with big corporation with $1 billion, I never see like this before in my life. Yeah, it's very strange to me. It's very strange. Well, Seattle is a city of idiots, and I'm talking about this almost for 20 years every day. My opinion right now straight. This year is a critical year. What's happened right now in this year, all in America, state Washington and Seattle, it will be for another 20-25 years. Or America will become back, make America great again, or America will be disappearing. Everybody knows this. All professional. I thinking I'm professional too. Maybe small, but professional. So when we're doing this right now, we don't clean what has happened, this dirty chain controlling by damn Nazi fascist junta for last 40 years, we will be disappear like a smoke. Stand up, America. Ask God, bring America back. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Clerk Hart, please call the next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is joining us virtually, and that is Kyle Moore, and he is our last sign-up that we have today. Kyle, please go ahead and restate your name for the record and your agenda item or your topic related to the conduct of port business, please, and then I'll start the timer.
Yeah, this is Kyle Moore. I'm the new interim city manager for City of Sea-Tac, and I'm speaking about the START annual report.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank you, Port Commission President Mohammed and Port Commissioners. My name's Kyle Moore. I'm the newly appointed interim city manager for City of Sea-Tac. City of Sea-Tac has served on SEA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, also known as START, since its very beginning, because residents of Sea-Tac understand firsthand what living next to an airport can be like, both the positives and negatives. I also want to thank Managing Director Lance Little and Port staff for all their hard work in getting this program off the ground and for keeping it moving in the right direction. START gives residents of Sea-Tac a seat at the table to come up with practical solutions. So I'm here to express my appreciation of what's been accomplished to date. I also look forward to continued collaboration and successes in 2024 and beyond. I want to particularly call out the work of START's two working groups, the Aviation Noise Working Group and the Federal Policy Working Group. Several aviation noise working group initiatives have made a real impact in reducing late night noise. In particular, the runway use plan and the late night noise limitation program have changed how airlines utilize SEA, both in terms of when they fly and what aircraft they use. The Federal Policy Working Group, for which I'm a member, has a shared legislative agenda and has been a great collaboration. Last year, I had the pleasure of flying to DC with my now mayor, Mohammed Iqbal, council members Peter Kwan, and Port Commission President Mohammed, along with other city START members and elected officials for the DC fly-in to advocate for the FAA Reauthorization Act. I want to say that we were very successful in our talks to the congressional delegation, and I want to thank everyone involved for that work. The City of Sea-Tac at the start of the year appointed two community representatives to START, Julie Lee and Roger Kadick, and both have attended START's in-person planning meeting last month, where we all took part in a brainstorming session on agenda items for future meetings and an airfield air cargo tour. So thank you for all of your work on this issue, and I want to thank everyone for at the port for their work with START.
Clerk Hart, that concludes our signups for today. Is that correct?
Yes, and just a thanks to Kyle for his public comment. Yes, we don't have anybody else signed up. If you'd like to call for the room or
Perfect.
virtually.
Is there anyone else present on the Teams call or present in the room today who did not sign up but wishes to address the commission? If so, please state your name and the topic related to port conduct that you wish to speak about for the record. Hearing none, at this time I'll ask Clerk Hart to please give us a synopsis of written comments that we have received.
Thank you, Madam Commission President. Good afternoon, members of the Commission. Madam Commission President, we have received 25 written comments submitted for the meeting today. These have been previously distributed to you and will become a part of the meeting record. All are related to the request for the port to reduce the number of cruise sailings until there is no water, air, and climate pollution, for the port to lobby the Washington State Legislature to expand the mission of Washington ports to include stewardship, to support the proposed U.S. Clean Shipping Act, to reject false solutions, to approach discussions, goals, studies, etc. related to the cruise sector in an honest and unbiased way, and to work in collaboration to support regional solutions that could reduce harm immediately. And these letters are coming from Jim Berthnall, Sarah Bliss, Paul Brown, Beth Brenton, Chris Covert-Bowles, Gregory Denton, Kevin Gallagher, Derek Glenville, sorry, I apologize, Bree Glenclid, Mary Hanson, Jared Howell, Yuchin Shia, Jeannie Johnson, Sophia Keller, Leo Kuswicks, and Breck Libicu. Continuing with Jason Lee, Lori Lucky, Beth McKelvey, Jean Myers, Audrey Olszewski, Donald Parda, Charles Raymond, Veronica Ruffin, and Angela Zalbin. And that concludes the written comments received today.
Thank you, Clerk Hart. Hearing no further public comment, we will now move forward to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted by one motion. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered separately after adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items covering 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, 8E, 8F, 8G, 8H, 8I, 8J, and 8K. Are there any comments for items that are on the consent agenda?
Make a motion first. Motion and second first before comments.
I will take the motion first.
So I move that we approve items 8A through K on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioners, are there any comments on any of these items at this time?
Yes, thank
Commissioner
you.
Feldman.
Thank you, Madam President. There's one item, 8J, on the agenda that the Port supported back in 2019, this innovative approach to address the longstanding need in the maritime workforce by the creation of the Maritime High School. And since it has such a high profile in our organization, I just thought real quickly to highlight some of the things that are in the memo. This item that we just approved includes 2 years of funding, which is technically the last 2 years that we originally supported for $1 million authorization for the program to get the first cohort of students through the program, but that's what we said in 2019. The memo documents there were currently 121 students enrolled, with 53% of them identified as white. However, none of them as identified as Native American, which the reason I highlight that is because I saw Jake Beatty while I was in DC, and he told me specifically that he'd like to expand the outreach to our First Nation tribal leaders here, and that I'm hoping that the Port can help with that effort, and as well as one of the things I think that all of the workforce programs that we've ever dealt with want to do is create better mechanisms to track. So these folks, we train these folks, and then what's the connection to the community, to the industry? And I know that that's part of what Jake is going to be looking for as well in the Maritime High School success of actually, putting these cohorts into the workforce. So I just wanted to bring that to folks' attention, and hope the Port can help with the outreach to tribes, maybe even this summer.
Thank you, Commissioner Feldman, for those comments, and I see that our Director of Equity is in the room, Director Bukta Gesar, and was nodding plenty of times during your comments, so I'm sure that's duly noted. Thanks for those comments. Commissioners, please say aye or nay when your name is called for the approval of the agenda. Clerk Hart.
Thank you. Beginning with Commissioner Cho, who's joining us virtually.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Feldman.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hasagawa.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed.
Aye.
Thank you. 4 ayes, 0 nays for this item.
Very good. The motion passes. Moving us along, we have 3 new business items today. Clerk Hart, please read the first item into the record. Then Executive Director Metric will introduce the item.
Thank you. This is Agenda Item 10A, Introduction of Resolution Number 3823, a resolution amending the policy directive for salaries and benefits for employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement established by Resolution Number 3820, and providing an effective date for all amendments of June 1st, 2024.
Commissioners, every year you approve the salary ranges and grades for Port employees. This year, we're asking something different. We're asking you to approve job titles, salary ranges, and pay grades that reflect the work underway to improve the Port's compensation program. As you'll hear in this presentation, the Port is updating a program that is more than 20 years old to be more simple, more transparent, and more equitable. This is a multi-phase project. Approving the new job titles, salary ranges, and pay ranges is a key element. We will continue implementing this program over the course of 2024. So presenters this afternoon are Katie Gerard, Senior Director of Human Resources, Keisha Reichstein, Director, Total Rewards, Human Resources, and Chris Beck, Manager, Total Rewards and Human Resources. So I'll turn it over to Katie to kick us off. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Executive Director Metric, and hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Really excited to be with you today. This has been a long project, and this is a major milestone that we're reaching today by introducing the changes to the Salary and Benefits Resolution. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to do a quick overview of the compensation project and what we've been working on for the last 3 years. We'll also talk about the background on the salary and benefits process and your role in that, and then we'll go through the recommended updates and changes that we're introducing to you today. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a slide that really talks about the things that we've improved, but I want to give you a little bit of background on why we needed to address them. It's been just over 5 years that I joined the Port, and coming into this organization, there were definitely some things that caught my attention. There was lots of feedback from employees about different programs administered by the HR department, and compensation was one that I heard a lot about. We definitely had issues with our salary increases. There had previously been larger salary increases through the pay for performance system, and there was a real need to address the changes in CPI throughout the region. We also had lots of inconsistencies around our job descriptions, and different authors would do different things at different times, and it wasn't well managed in terms of the variety of types of work that we have here at the Port, and so we wanted to bring some consistency to that process. We also used a point factor system, which is very confusing for non-compensation professionals and really did not help us in the way of making sure we were educating our managers and our employees about our compensation program. We also had rather large pay bands, so someone performing the same work could make substantially different amounts of pay for the same work being performed. We also previously aligned our market reference point to the midpoint of our salary ranges and felt like that was not something to make us as competitive as we could be in the organization. So throughout my time here at the Port, we engaged an outside vendor, a local WIMBY firm, Compensation Connections, to help us really look at our compensation program over a variety of areas. We held several focus groups. We really did a kind of a landscape scan to see what was going on in the market. We put together multiple design teams. We had sounding boards. We had training for managers at different points throughout this project. And we have already implemented some exciting things. So back in 2023, we did establish the COLA and the COLA Plus program, and we've been operating under that for the last 2 years. We did simplify the job description and asked all of our managers to rewrite the job descriptions for all of our non-represented staff. That is no small feat. Over 800 job descriptions were written. New matrices were developed to help people build their careers here at the Port, to really show a pathway forward throughout our organization. We also expanded our market pricing tools and made it a much more robust and nimble system so that we have good information about the market for the jobs that we perform. And what we're bringing to you today is that new pay structure, where we've really looked at what is best for our organization, making them a little bit more narrow, but also further apart, so there's more growth from one range to the next. And so we're really excited. We also did one other change that I want to make note is that we did make a separate salary structure for our executive positions. And so that is a new element that we're introducing this year. So we will now have 2 salary structures that we're asking you to approve. And underlying all of this, we also went through that comprehensive equity assessment throughout the organization and the Women of Color assessment. And that provided a lot of good information and what some additional concerns were regarding our pay program. And so we have established a new pay equity philosophy, and we are in the final stages of finalizing a methodology that will bring more consistency to the program that we offer here at the Port. Next slide, please. So this has been a multi-year project. We have definitely put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this work. We are definitely really focused on those principles of equity, simplicity, and transparency. And we've really done a top-down, across-the-board review. So all the training, all the communications, the processes, the practices. We now have much better information about the data that's contained in our job descriptions. And so I think we're really well positioned to have a really robust, competitive pay structure going forward. With that, it comes with emotions, right? Pay is personal. And while there are some that will see some good changes that are perceived as positive, there's also some that are also really challenged with some of these changes. We're doing our best to really educate everyone as to the why of the changes that we're bringing forward. But we do just want to acknowledge that this is definitely a big cultural change for our organization that comes with an emotional response. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the new structure. So we previously had a structure that had 36 grades. We're moving to a structure that has 20. I got the question of why start with 50? We really just wanted to show a difference from what we've had before and where we're starting anew with this new structure. So we'll start at a grade 50 and go up to 70. And you'll see here that we've also made a reference to the market reference point, which is now at the 25th percentile instead of the midpoint. So it gets people to market sooner in the grade and gives them much more space above market in the new salary grades. Next slide, please. And then this is we use the same design principles for the executive grade structure. It really does mirror in terms of design, and there is some overlap, but it's not an exact continuation of the previous one that you just saw. There is some overlap, but just wanted to do something separate to recognize executive compensation here at the Port. Next slide, please. All right, and as I explained in our briefing, we have changed the approach to a phased approach. So today we're asking for the adoption, or we're introducing the new salary structure along with some technical corrections in some of the other areas related to definitions and just some wordsmithing for clarity and a few other minor changes. And then we will be moving forward with our pay equity methodology. There's some additional work that needs to be done, and so that we are aiming towards Q3 for an implementation of that pay equity methodology. That will result in some, but not all employees receiving an increase at that time. We are currently in the process of re-reviewing people's work experience to really determine where they should be in that pay range. And those new processes and guidelines for promotions, temporary assignment, and new hire offers will also be completed at that time. Just as a reminder, we are looking at both experience and performance as the factors that could differentiate why someone makes something different for performing the same work. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to our Total Rewards Director, Keisha Regstein.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So in addition to providing the background of the comp project, we're here to request introduction of Resolution 3823, the 2024 Salary and Benefits Resolution that will update the Port's Salary and Benefits Policy Directive. The Salary and Benefits Directive specifies the pay and benefits programs for non-represented employees at the Port per RCW 5308170. It is required that the Port Commission authorizes revisions to the pay and benefits programs that are part of the Port's overall total rewards package for non-represented employees. This year's changes include the introduction of the 2 graded salary structure and additional language updates resulting from the compensation project and other definition updates. Next slide, please. The pay ranges at the Port reflect the minimum and maximum amount that the Port pays to employees whose jobs are assigned to a specific range. The 2024 graded salary range structures reflect what the external market is paying for similar work. As Katie described, we are introducing 2 graded salary range structures, a 20-grade structure for the majority of non-represented jobs, and a second 7-grade structure for executive leadership positions. Each Port job was assigned to a pay range through a job assessment process. Job assessment is a common practice to use the essential responsibilities and qualifications of a port job to determine a competitive salary using external market pricing reference tools. Employees are placed on the new graded salary structure based on their job's grade assignment. So there is no pay change for employees associated with the introduction of this new graded salary structure unless the employee's current pay is less than the new minimum of their assigned pay grade. And those employees will receive an increase to their base pay up to the minimum of the new pay range. We're also recommending updating language to align with the job assessment process, which is a change from the previous job evaluation method. Next slide, please. In addition, we're also recommending other language updates that support changes coming from the compensation project. We recommend updating the description for initial pay rates to align to our pay equity methodology. The description for initial pay rates will read as pay rates for newly hired employees will be within the pay ranges set forth in the graded salary range structure. A newly hired employee's placement within the pay range will be based on related experience they bring to the port. In addition, previously the chief of police, the fire chief, deputy chief of police, and assistant fire chief positions were excluded from the job evaluation methodology. Pay ranges for those positions were determined through the same process we're introducing as job assessment, so the exclusion from this process is no longer needed in the resolution. Next slide. We are recommending a change to the definition of at-will. Currently, there is a legacy provision for employees hired prior to January 1, 2014 that we recommend be removed so that the at-will designation can be extended to all executive leadership positions. We are recommending a change to the seasonal employee definition to be a term of 6 months or less, changed from less than a full year, and that aligns us to regulations like the Affordable Care Act and other internal policies and business practices. And lastly, we are recommending updates to the definitions of port, paid family, and medical leaves to align with the state's definitions. Medical leave is for an employee's serious medical condition. Family leave is to care for a family member. The port administers the paid leave plans, and these definition updates do not result in a substantive change to the plans. So next slide, please. The cost of the salary and benefit policy directive that we're recommending includes increasing 42 employees' base pay to the minimum of their new pay grade on the 2024 graded salary range structure. We expect this cost to be approximately $191,000 per annum. Next slide. So this is the presentation and recommendations we have for you today. Katie and I are happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the presenters today? Commissioner Fellman.
And thank you for this heroic undertaking, and I'm sure it's not without a lot of heartburn. So I just think it's really important that the one thing I learned when you briefed me on this, that to make clear that nobody's salary goes down. So this is, everybody hear that? Nobody's salary goes down, right?
That is correct. Thank you for stressing that.
And then, but where the challenge is like sort of like the glass ceiling can be hit a little sooner, or things like this, that the grade that you're in, you may not be able to exceed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we set a value for every job that's performed at the port. And so when you hit the maximum of that grade, that is the maximum. Our current practice is to do lump sum payments beyond that, but there are no additional adjustments to base. There's one exception, like every year we will look at the cost of labor and make an adjustment to the pay grades. In the past, it's, you know, been from 0% adjustment up to 4% adjustment. So as we do that over the year, there will be possibility for people to get some changes to their base, but it really just depends on what's happening in the market and what we adjust our grades by each year.
All right, and the one other thing is that the at-will definition, That's just to define it's for ELT members, or is that beyond ELT members?
We do have an additional position beyond the executive team, but there's one executive team member that was hired prior to that being introduced into the resolution, and so we're making that change at this time.
So this will only apply to ELT members, other than this one individual, or?
The salary structure will
Yeah.
only apply to ELT members, correct?
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Fellman, for those questions. Commissioner Hasagawa.
Thank you. So, quick couple questions. On slide 11, I didn't realize that current ELT positions were not at will or exempt.
Yeah, it's a legacy thing. It was introduced in 2014, so there is one person who was hired before that into executive position that will be changing.
And they'll become an exempt employee at that point in time?
Yes, they'll become an at-will employee at that time.
Okay.
Yes.
And then on slide 5, going through the chart, can you just verify that this is based upon FTEs and not part-time positions?
Yeah, this is reflects full-time salaries.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Can you go to slide 8 for me, please? The resolution and what it does. Does the resolution exclude education from being an allowable consideration, or does it just allow for other areas to also lend themselves for consideration?
We defined our pay equity philosophy with the factors being experience and then performance once you're at the port.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there actual verbiage of the resolution before us to consider?
Yeah, that should be part of your document set that has the full resolution. It's quite lengthy. There are all sorts of things defined in it, and what we've highlighted today are the changes.
Okay. And then when are we anticipating this to come before us?
It will next be before you for a vote on May 28th.
On May 28th.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hasagawa. Just pausing to make sure that Commissioner Cho doesn't have a virtual hand up. Okay, Mr. Metrick has some comments?
I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Fellman's question about the lump sums. And I just wanted to clarify, actually, that takes place today under the existing structure. Do you want to talk about that for a second, Katie? Just saying, so that's not a new development, it does exist already today in the existing structure.
Yeah, so today, if you reach the maximum of your pay grade, and let's say we apply a COLA or a pay for performance increase, they would get that as a lump sum payment as opposed to a change to their base pay. So they're still getting more pay every year that they're at the max. It's just administered in a different way. It's in a lump sum payment rather than spread out throughout the year. And that's current practice today, yeah.
I just have a couple of questions myself.
Sure.
Could you speak just a little bit to how employees were able to weigh in on this process, what opportunities they've had to provide comments, and the considerations for that?
Sure. So we have had active opportunities for people to participate. When we originally were started, we did surveys and focus groups to get input on what employees were wanting to see in their compensation program. We have subsequently held several executive director town halls, HR broadcasts. We did develop a comp chat series where people could come and get their questions asked. We have a robust website on our Compass site that has a variety of information available, FAQs. We have an employee feedback email box that people submit their questions, and then those are addressed and posted on Compass. All of our live events are posted as well, so people can see what our responses are to the questions that have been submitted by employees.
Great. That's really helpful. And additionally, this is not going to impact represented employees, obviously.
Correct. This is just for non-represented.
Right. Great. And then I just quickly wanted to hear how potentially this can impact our budget overall in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. Is that something you all assessed?
Yes, so, until we get the review done of work experience, I can't give you what the actual dollar will be, but we do expect it to increase our payroll costs over time. There are individuals that will be due pay equity adjustments, and we've shared those, just bringing people to minimum. That's something we've done every year as we adjust the pay grades. Sometimes there are some employees that their current salary is below the minimum, so that's done every year when we have that situation. So we don't have an overall estimate, but we do have money in the budget for what we expect to come our way, and it could be substantial, but we are, until we get the work experience review done, we don't have the total dollar figure. We're in discussions right now with Dan Thomas and his team in terms of the 2025 budget planning to put some assumptions in there based on our best information available at this time.
Thank you, Director, for those answers. That concludes my comments. Are there any additional comments before we move forward? Commissioner Hasegawa.
Thank you. Okay, so can you describe for me the difference between the use of the word evaluation versus the use of the word assessed, and what that's hoped to
Sure. So
accomplish?
previously we used a tool called JobMez, and we called it a job evaluation. Now we're really leading with market, and so we're no longer using that evaluation tool. So we wanted to signal that it's now different, and it really is a market assessment to determine the value of each of the jobs here at the port.
Okay, thank you. And then you talk about at the draft resolution, section 5.1D, it says replacing the phrase required skill level responsibility and effort required in working conditions with essential responsibilities and minimum qualifications. Can you talk to me about the nuance of, for example, posting something and having a list of required versus desired qualifications?
Sure. Again, those are changes to align with the new job description that we have in place. We have essential functions, we have minimum requirements, we have preferred requirements. And so on the job posting, we'll now say which of those things are required and which ones are desired. If it's required, it's something you have to be considered for the job. The desired are not deal breakers, right? So you can still get in the door without meeting the desired qualifications.
So a desired qualification, although it's not required, it could help you get the job, but you're not being compensated accordingly. Or is that actually addressed within the language of this resolution?
Education with a distinct value and how we assign pay to new employees is not addressed.
Okay. And I also just wanted to lend my appreciation to you all for this body of work. It's built off of lots of research and lots of engagement with folks to understand the facts of where people are, barriers, and a strategy to overcome those barriers to fair pay. And I also think that as an employer, one of the biggest risks to an institution would be turnover. And we would hate to lose talent because we can't compete as an employer. And I think it's so important that we take care of staff. I just think it's a really critical piece of what we do, and are able to maintain functionality as an institution. Thank you for making us stronger. Thank you for making us more just. Wanted to echo what President Mohammed mentioned, that this is for represented, not non-represented employees, though through our SEA Workforce Conditions Committee, President Mohammed and I are taking a look at how we can address justice in access to benefits for non-represented employees at the airport, including things like childcare, healthcare, and Orca passes for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any additional comments at this time? Thank you, Director, for the presentation. Executive Director Metrick has a final comment.
Thank you, Commissioners, and I do want to add, I want to thank Katie and her team in HR, but also everyone throughout the port that participated in the process. I know this really matters. Katie kind of touched on it, but when you touch everybody non-represented in the port on their pay, of course, there's interest from all of those. But I think, what we want to build for is all those elements, and I think Commissioner Hasegawa hit on those, which is we want to be more equitable in what we're doing, we want to be transparent, and we want to be simplified so it's more easily understood. And really the example, Katie didn't use the example, but it's often the one that I like to use, which is we can look at two people doing the same level of work with the same experience and understand why they should be paid the same and not paid differently throughout the port. And so that's really the outcomes that we're seeking, is those being equitable in that pay and having a simple and understandable. So,
Great. Thank you, Executive Director Metrick. Hearing no further questions for this item, is there a motion and a second to approve item 10A for introduction of the resolution number 3823?
So moved.
Seconded.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioners, are there any additional discussions or debate on this item? Hearing none, Clerk Hart, please call the roll for the vote. Commissioners, please say aye or nay when your name is called.
For the vote, beginning with Commissioner Cho.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Felleman.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoskawa.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed.
Aye.
Thank you. 4 ayes, 0 nays for this item.
Great. The motion to introduce resolution number 3823 has passed. The resolution will come back before the commission on May 28th for consideration of adoption. Thank you again for the presentation.
Good job.
Clerk Hart, please read the next item into the record. Commission Strategic Advisor Tyler will then introduce the item.
Thank you. This is Agenda Item 10B, Adoption of Order Number 2024-07, an order, quote, shredding the paper ceiling, end quote, at the Port of Seattle by eliminating unnecessary post-secondary degree requirements for port jobs.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am very excited to present this order, a change in our hiring practices that aligns the port with both local and national employment trends. Commission President Mohammed brought forth this order, Commission Order Number 2024-07, to shred the paper ceiling by eliminating unnecessary post-secondary degree requirements for most positions here at the Port of Seattle. The text of this order directs the Executive Director or a designated delegate to remove degree requirements for all port jobs unless such qualifications are legally necessary for performing the job's essential functions. You may be aware of the phenomenon called degree inflation, where over the last few decades, many jobs that did not previously require a 4-year college degree now do require a 4-year degree. Studies from institutions like the Harvard Business School have shown that this trend creates inefficiencies in the labor market and restricts organizations from finding the best talent for their job openings. Implementing this order requires a clear framework. As I said previously, we will maintain degree requirements where they are a legal necessity for the role. For all other positions, hiring managers who believe a degree is necessary for success in the role may petition the Executive Director or the Senior Director of Human Resources for an exception. These changes will be integrated into our HR 8 talent acquisition policy to ensure compliance and uniformity across the port. We would not be alone in making these changes. Including the state of Washington's substitute House Bill 2216, at least 16 other U.S. states have adopted similar policies limiting degree requirements for most state government positions. By adopting Order Number 2024-07, the Commission President anticipates several outcomes: increased access to port jobs for a broader and more diverse talent pool, enhanced operational efficiency by focusing on practical skills and experience, and finally, strengthened community ties and support as we offer more opportunities to local residents regardless of their educational background. For the public, I'll go ahead and read the text of the order, which is as follows. The Port Commission hereby orders the Executive Director or a delegate to remove all requirements for a post-secondary, college or university, degree for all jobs at the port unless that degree is required by law for an employee to perform the essential functions of that position. Should a hiring manager have a non-legal but significant rationale for narrowing their potential hiring pool for a given position by requiring a certain degree, they may petition the Executive Director and/or Senior Director of Human Resources for the ability to do so. The actions above shall be incorporated into the Port's HR 8 talent acquisition policy. So in conclusion, Order Number 2024-07 may represent a pivotal step in our Port's commitment to inclusivity and efficiency. Thank you again for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Tyler, for introducing the item. Commissioners, is there any questions for this order? Commissioner Felleman.
I just want to know how it relates to the presentation we just had on, does this an emphasis on the scoring, or, how is this being folded in, or has already been folded in? And thank you.
I'll pass that over to our Senior Director of Human Resources.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Katie Gerard, Senior Director of Human Resources. It's actually perfect timing. As we were redoing all of our job descriptions, that was actually something we were very intentional about asking. Why is the degree required? What degree is required? Because so many different institutions use so many different names for similar type bodies of study. So it really is good timing. The way that we captured our job description information from managers, we can actually very quickly assess how many jobs currently require a degree, and we've done that. And we are in discussions with recommending changes to all of those managers. We will, of course, entertain the exception requests should we get them. We're not quite there yet, but we do have ready access to all the jobs here at the port that require a degree. We were not in that position before last year, so that it's actually really good timing to be able to do the assessment and make the changes where needed.
Great, thank you for that answer. Commissioner Hasagawa, any questions?
Does this preclude the employer from listing education as a preferred qualification?
We don't believe that it does. It's the requirement, so it opens the door for anyone who doesn't have the degree, but still could have it identified as a preferred qualification.
In practice, how do you imagine this would make a difference if they're still listing a degree as a preferred qualification, and it therefore gives them an edge in hiring?
Yeah, so as we receive applicants, we screen for minimum qualifications. That's then who is considered for advancing into the next phase of the process. And so the recruiter, in consultation with the hiring manager, makes those calls in terms of what's being brought forward by each of those candidates that meet the minimums first. So that's the first cutoff to get into the process and be able to continue. Certainly if they have 100 candidates, they might want to look at the preferred candidates first to see if there's a way to narrow it that way. It really all depends on the size of the pool that we have and what is being brought forward and what specifically a hiring manager is looking for.
And do you think that that helps us compete with other places where folks having education or a certain level of education, which is a preferred qualification, that could give them an edge in a different employment setting?
I suppose that's possible. It goes to the culture and what someone brings to the table. Mm-hmm. I've certainly been in government a long time and have seen people that were precluded from getting into a job that they probably would have been very successful in, and vice versa. Someone who has the degree that maybe doesn't offer the experience that's really needed for the job at hand. So it really is individual. We're always looking for the best candidate for each of our jobs.
And is that, if it was listed not as a required qualification, but as preferred qualification, could it come up within the range of the salary position as like a tool for leverage for negotiating pay? Or is negotiating pay even something that the Port of Seattle will do anymore as a starting point?
We're really trying to get negotiation out of our process because that's where inconsistencies occur. So having a formula that we are still working on finalizing, but having that focused on the experience you bring to the job at the level of what the scope and responsibility is for the job you're being hired is what we will be assessing to determine starting pay.
And even though experience might be separate from education, experience is still going to be an objective measurement?
As objective as possible, we ask people to tell us how their job is similar to the job that they're being hired for, and then making that assessment.
And the idea is that we're eliminating bias in hiring processes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for those answers. Any additional questions for staff at this point? Executive Director Metrick has a comment.
I think it kind of building on your discussion, Commissioner Hasagawa, is that level of experience, and this opens up the door to broaden the pool. You talked about it perhaps being shrinking if you're applying for other jobs. It'll actually, in my view, will broaden that pool, so we will have more candidates to look at. And then, in my experience, similar to Director Gerard's, is that sometimes that experience really has a value unto itself, and that's what we're looking at, similar experience or experience that leads to that. So I think I think this is a great step that'll help us broaden that pool of applicants.
Great, thank you for those additional comments. Any further questions for staff? So hearing no further questions for this item, is there a motion and a second to adopt this item?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioners, is there any further discussion or debate on this item? I have some comments that I'd like to provide, considering that I brought this order forward. I just would like to say that I think this action is really designed to open up opportunities, to create more opportunities for folks who do have significant job experience, maybe technical degrees, certificates, and who want to be able to have an opportunity to work at a place like the Port of Seattle. As someone who has multiple degrees from the University of Washington, it's important to note that I am not trying to remove consideration for degrees in hiring processes. Instead, I view this order as a way to broaden the pool of applicants who are considered for port jobs in a matter that is transparent and equal. I see this as a legislation similar to the ban the box legislation that we've seen in Washington State, and also just want to underscore that this order aligns with the Washington State House Bill 2216 that just recently passed, and also there are 16 other states across the United States that have eliminated degree requirements for most state positions. And last year I actually participated in a Harvard Fellowship program, and this particular issue came up. It's in the language of the order as well, where Harvard Business School has found that these degree inflation metrics that we see for many four-year college degree requirements that previously was not required is creating a phenomena that is making the U.S. labor market more ineffective. And that is just the fact. And so I think this will not undermine degrees, but just create more opportunities for folks who, you know, may not be able to go to a four-year institution or who have significant job experience, and a degree is not necessary for them to apply for a particular position. So I don't think anyone should feel threatened by this or feel like, oh my God, my degree doesn't have value. It has a lot of values. Again, as someone who has multiple degrees from the University of Washington, hopes to get a PhD someday, we think your degrees are very important. You should go after that. We support education. We're just saying that this is a way to create more opportunities for all. And so I'm looking forward to the vote today. With that said, Clerk Hart, please call the roll for the vote. Commissioners, please say aye or nay when your name is called.
Thank you. We'll begin with Commissioner Mohammed.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Cho. Commissioner Pelliman.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hasagawa.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Cho.
Is he still online?
He is. And one more time calling for Commissioner Cho.
Hi, sorry, I got disconnected for a second.
Sure. I'm sorry. For the vote, I didn't hear you, Commissioner.
Aye.
Thank you very much. 4 ayes, 0 nays for this item.
Thank you. The motion has passed.
Can I have one quick comment?
Yes, Commissioner Fellman has a comment.
I just wanted to.
It's muted.
I just wanted to say nothing out loud. No, I wanted to thank Commissioner Mohammed for the leadership in taking this, and I think we should hold her multiple degrees against her, although it did help with the election, I'm sure. But no, thank you very much, and I'm glad it dovetails so nicely with our other work on salaries. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Fellman, for those comments. Clerk Hart, please read the next item into the record, and then Executive Director Metrick, you'll have the floor for the introduction.
Thank you. This is Agenda Item 10C, authorization for the Executive Director to prepare design and construction bid packages for S-Concourse facilitating projects, to procure long lead items, to utilize port crews for design support, to execute an alternative delivery contract, and to increase the project authorization by $25 million for a total project authorization to date of $127,500,000.
Commissioners, a Before I present the next item, which Lance and his team are all here to do this, but I would take a point of personal privilege to recognize the contributions of one of our employees, and that is Kazue Ishiwata. So, Kazue, I want to recognize her and take this opportunity before this item. It's related to that, and I want to recognize her for developing international service at the airport. Kazue started her career at Seattle Tacoma International Airport nearly 40 years ago when she was 15, and she has traveled every corner of the planet, finding win-win solutions that better connect with our community, to the world, and help airlines run successful businesses. She has played a critical role in defining today's Pacific Northwest economy, cultural diversity, and opportunities. Not to mention those family connections as well throughout the world. I just want to highlight a few of the statistics that show the growth in our region during her tenure. Back in 1989, our airport served almost 5 million passengers, and this year we will serve over 50 million passengers. In 1989, we had 15 airlines with international service and only 8 with service to Asia or Europe. By the end of 2024, we'll have 53 services to 33 international destinations on 28 different airlines. Those numbers are amazing, and that's what we call the Kazue effect. Kazue, thank you for your service. What you've done has been an incredible representative of the region and the port.
Executive Director Metric, would you like me to call Kazue up for any comments?
Sure, I think that we would welcome that.
Add to the embarrassment, just in case. Yeah. And I'd like to give an opportunity for commissioners to make any comments as well. Point of privilege.
Well, thank you so very much. I am really humbled and I feel truly grateful. And there are a few things in my life that I've done right. One is that nearly 40 years ago, I came to Seattle with only 2 suitcases and one-way ticket and decided to live here. That was really the right thing to do. I was actually very cold, even it was June, because I only brought warm clothes and I didn't have money to buy new clothes. I was freezing all the time. Second, I chose to work for the Port of Seattle. And I think the best job is to work for the benefit of the community you love. And I was truly grateful that Port of Seattle gave a chance to a girl from Tokyo with virtually no experience at the time. And finally, I think one of the best things I've done is to marry my husband, and he's here today. And it was really actually a package because I couldn't have done my job without his support all along. So it's been truly a great privilege for me. Thank you, everyone, for all your support, and I would truly cherish my memory of having worked here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Kazue, you could stay. We have a couple of comments from commissioners. Feel free to stay seated.
Point of personal privilege.
Commissioner Hasegawa.
Kazue-san, I wanted to thank you for all of your years of service. In Japanese culture, we're born into a sense of debt, and we spend our whole lives trying to pay that debt back to the society that has given so much to us. And when I see somebody who came before me at the Port of Seattle who has done so much to make it what it is today, to step in only 2 years ago, and to be able to continue the legacy of service, I very much think of it as having inherited that legacy from all of you who have done that work for so long. And we'll spend the rest. I'll spend the rest of my tenure trying to pay that forward. Thank you so much for your example. Okage-sama de. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you, Commissioner Hasegawa. Commissioner Bellman?
Well, Kazue, I've had a chance to watch you in action for some time now, and even had to go to China for cutting the ribbon on Xiamen Airlines, which turned off again and on again. So we appreciate your tenacity. And the one thing I recall most about, I think the thing I've told you most over the years is while we've been having all these growing pains and trying to, fit another wide body into the gate if we could, I was always thinking that you should have paid administrative leave because you've been so successful, and we just need to catch up to ourselves while you are out there continuing to encourage more folks to come our way. And I'm so appreciative that you have done such a phenomenal job, and your legacy will go on for a very long time. What Executive Metric, I didn't mean to downgrade him. Executive Metric was, summarizing what just happened since 1989 is extraordinary. So thank you so much for your service, and I hope you stay nearby.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Cho.
Yes, thank you so much. I'd just like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Causeway, you and I have had the opportunity to travel together in recent years, most recently in Sydney. And I saw you in action, talking to some potential new carriers for Gateway, and quite frankly, it's no mystery why we've been successful when it comes to expanding our portfolio of offerings when it comes to international travel. You're such a huge part of the reason why we continue to have both in our Gateway, why we recovered beyond our pre-pandemic service offerings. We're tremendous debt to the tremendous work that you've done. I think it goes underappreciated how much and how difficult it really is to accommodate international carriers. It's a completely different ballgame than domestic carriers, as you know, and as many of my colleagues here know. And for us to work in such a constrained space, where quite frankly, for many years, we didn't have the IAF and we didn't have enough gates. It's truly remarkable what we've been able to accomplish. And so all that, a huge credit to you and your team and all the work you've done over the years. I hope to continue to build on your legacy, and we hope to continue to see you around the port. So thank you so much, and we wish you best.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I also just want to take a moment to echo those same sentiments. I heard of your name and you and your work before I got to meet you in person, and so I truly believe that your legacy will live on throughout the port, whether you're here or not. And it was a pleasure being able to meet you at the opening of the Indian Consular General's reception and the opening of that office in Seattle at the time. And your passion for the work really comes through. And again, I just want to say thank you for your public service. And it's great to see how much Director Little lights up to see you being celebrated in this moment. And so that really does speak volumes to your leadership and the work that you've done here at the Port of Seattle. Again, thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, everyone. And it's been really a great honor for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you again. Executive Director Metric.
Thanks. But we'll segue now, but I know that Director Little will have an opportunity to say some things about Causeway. I don't know if you want to say anything now before we transition.
Yes, I would, if you don't. Thank you. I heard about Causeway before I met her as well, but I've had the distinct pleasure of actually working with her and to see her genius at work. We have had to go to different locations to convince airlines to come here versus going to other cities. It's a very competitive thing. They're trying to make a decision, should they go to Vancouver, LA, San Francisco? And Causeway is so brilliant in preparing myself and some of the other team members when you go to these air service development trip, because it's a different culture, it's a different behavior, it's different everywhere. It's different in Asia, it's different in the Middle East, different in North America, etc. And she is so prepared. She's so good at what she does, and you're in her presence, and you're in awe, and you're just seeing this genius at work. And I'm going to miss her more than anyone, is because I'm the biggest beneficiary. As I said in the quarterly review earlier, I have on my performance plan every year air service development goals. I've never missed one of them ever. In fact, the complaint I get from the operations and the planning and development team is that, hey, tell Causeway to slow down. We don't have enough gates for all these airlines coming in. So I've been like the biggest beneficiary, and Causeway, we're gonna miss you so much. It was a pleasure working with you. I've had the pleasure of meeting your husband as well. Just a fantastic individual, and we're just really, really going to miss you here at the port. Thank you for everything that you have done. Your legacy will live on here at the port forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, and that's a great segue because we're going to be asking you today to invest in facilities that support international travel.
Was that a trick? Cosway's going to help you guys get the yes votes, huh?
Yes, yes. Commissioners, the South Satellite on the S-Concourse was constructed in 1971 and serves millions of passengers each year. In October 2022, you provided initial authorization to reimagine this outdated facility through addressing critical code requirements and enhancements to the passenger experience by repurposing of the existing Federal Inspection Service area, concourse level renovations, and expanded penthouse level. Our team is back before you today, led by Managing Director of Aviation Lance Little, to request authorization for facilitating projects to ensure minimal gate outages and passenger impacts during construction. So the presenters are Director Little, John Freeman, Capital Project Manager, Chris Calder, Capital Program Leader, and Kerry Stevens, Director, Aviation Facilities and Capital Programs. So with that, I'll turn over to Managing Director Lance Little.
Thank you, Executive Director Metric. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Before handing over to Chris and John, I'd like to just say a few words about the significance of this project. As you have heard me say on many occasions, we have these long-term goals to become a 5-star rated airport, to be in the top 25 airport worldwide, and to have a level of service optimum, sustainability goal, greenest airport goals, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one of the many projects that I've shown many times in the puzzles that we're putting together. Other projects included the International Arrival Facility, the North Concourse Central Terminal, which are all completed, and of course we're doing the North Main Terminal with Alaska Airlines, the Wyden's arrivals, and many other projects, restrooms, etc. However, the difference with this project is that it will be more than like the most expensive, the most disruptive, the most complicated project in the history of the airport. That's how important it is. And one of the reasons, of course, there are many reasons. One of them is that we have such a small footprint. We are one of the most densely, if not the most densely operated airport in the United States, and it makes everything that we're doing that much more complicated. The ideal situation would be to just shut down the entire concourse, rebuild it, or shut down half of it, rebuild it. Alas, we do not have that luxury because we have to keep operations going, we have to keep airlines operations going, especially international operations, and that makes it that much more complicated. Now, when the facility is completed, it will have all these wonderful amenities to meet the needs of our traveling public, which John and Chris will talk about. However, the important thing to remember is, first and foremost, this is a safety and a compliance code upgrade project. That's very important to remember. It's a safety project. Seismic upgrades, code upgrades, etc. That's very, very important to remember. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Chris.
All right, afternoon, Commissioners. John Freeman, Capital Program Leader, overall responsible for the SE project. Next slide, please. So with this, the project is part of the Upgrade SEA program, so working very closely with external relations and just across the airport as a whole, make sure we're getting word out as the project starts progressing along through design, just on the impacts that are going to occur, when they're going to start seeing those gate outages, see construction, be able to start getting out some sketches and drawings so that individuals that are going to be traveling through the airport have an idea what they're going to be seeing here in the next couple of years. We're also going to be doing some big media tour things, just prepping everyone as we get ready to start all of that. Next slide, please. So as both Executive Director Metric and Lance said, with this, it really is a 50-plus-year-old building now, and we want to give it another 50-year life. That primary objective is the structural component, both gravity and seismic upgrades throughout the entire building. We also need to upgrade the utilities to the building. There's currently only a single water source that enters the building, not very viable. If we have some sort of issue with it, need to provide the redundancy. Also need to get smoke control, updated HVAC systems that are more energy efficient, meeting the current codes. Get all of that accomplished as that primary objective. Secondary is really just enhance the passenger experience. This is a 50-year-old building. There's still some of the old ceiling tile out there that has, some of the cigarette smoke stain in it and stuff like that in some of the spaces where that was allowed.
Nice to meet you.
So lots of stuff going on with that. Commissioner Cho, do you have a question? Oh, there we go. So,
continue.
okay. So lots of ADR opportunities throughout it. Right now, we only have 4 restaurants available for passengers. We'll likely see upwards of 10 plus when we're completed with it. Also, new sensory room, mother suites, options like that, very similar to what's at the new North Concourse. We'll also put in the S Concourse, providing more opportunities there. One big difference from this project as compared to the N Concourse is we are not going to be adding any gates, and it does not increase overall capacity of the airport. We are space constrained just to meet the FAA requirements of the existing building, so we're not going to add any gates, and that's a big piece we want everyone to know. Also, so far we've already selected a designer, a contractor, project management, controls, and a commissioning agent, and we've started the 30% design. With the contractor, we are going with an alternative delivery of a general contractor construction manager, which is a lessons learned. This is the same methodology that we used on the North Satellite project. We had a lot of success with that, working hand in hand with the contractor early on. There's a little bit of difference in that with a design build. The designer is contracted directly to the contractor. We're going with the GCCM. They're contracted directly to the port. So it gives us a lot more flexibility and control over the design, while also having that contractor there looking at constructability, providing pricing at each phase of the design as we move forward. Additionally, under the project management and controls piece of the project, we have a airline-specific project manager. It's very similar to the airline technical representative that the airport uses today to really coordinate with all those international and domestic airlines that use this facility. We felt it would be very beneficial to ensure that the airlines are being updated, have all the information they need at any one time. And as I said, we're starting the 30% design, going to be completed with that towards the end of this year for base building. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Chris so we can really kind of start talking about why we're here today with the facilitating projects and what we're getting ready to do.
Yeah, thanks, John. Next slide, please. So during our initial commission authorization, when we were here before you, we communicated that we'd be back to talk about the operational impacts and how we'd address those. So really, that's what I want to dive into right now. John referenced the North Satellite project and how successful that was. So when we started this project, we took a similar initial approach to phasing, and we're going to do it, first the north half, then the south half. But immediately what we saw is what that would do to the operational impact. Thanks to Causeway and all of her international traffic that she's brought us, what that actually does to the S Concourse has a cascading effect throughout the airports when you start to take out gates there. So looking at this, we realized our regular approach wouldn't work. If we took a kind of standard approach here, we'd have 50 to 70 gates, 50 to 70 flights that would be unserved during our busiest summer days. So that doesn't mean 50 to 70 flights without a gate. That means 50 to 70 flights, period, don't have a place to even park at our airport if we proceeded in a normal way. So it was clear we needed a suite of solutions. So if you go to the next slide. This is just a sampling of some of the alternatives we looked at. As Lance alluded to, we're an extremely space-constrained airport, so we really had to take a no stones unturned approach as we looked around the airport for places to park aircraft and then be able to move people out to those aircraft. One of the things we looked at in our approach was a variety of competing factors that included how well some of these other facilitating type projects would impact cost and schedule, overall customer experience, how well they met the airline's needs, and then the compatibility with the airport's own planning objectives. One of the things we ended up doing was we put a team together, and that team consisted of an airline technical representative. It consisted of people from our operations team, customer experience, security, and other stakeholders. And then we use those factors to evaluate these different facilitating alternatives. Next slide. So what we came up with was a menu approach. It includes both revising our phasing concept and then some facilitating projects that are going to help us solve the issue for our flights. John is going to talk about the phasing approach here in a bit, but one of the things he did working with our design and management team was to come up with a multi-phase approach, which is accomplishes all of our seismic and structural upgrades while limiting gate closures during any period in the project. So really it's that phasing, revision of the phasing that's the real heavy lifter that helps lower the overall impact that the project has to our gates. The other part of the equation is some of the facilitating projects, and this includes a short-term hold room facility that replaces some of the hold rooms eliminated during the actual construction. We also have a variety of aircraft passenger operations that are going to need to shift out to different places around the ramp. And then finally, we're converting an existing busing gate back to a contact gate served by a loading bridge on the D concourse. John alluded to this, but these facilitating projects, they directly offset the gate and hold room capacity lost at S concourse during construction. These are short-term improvements, and they do not increase the number of gates or increase capacity at SEA. They are just there to mitigate the construction. At this point, I'm going to pivot back to John. He's going to talk about some of the schedule and cost impacts that go along with this.
Thank you, Chris. Next slide, please. So with this, the rephase of the base building, as Chris said, really was the biggest piece. Of that 50 to 70 flights, we're seeing that reduced down to 10 to 15 flights per day by going to the rephase. We worked with the designer and contractor on this. The designer was able to come up with the three kind of schematics you see at the bottom of the quadrant: north, south, and west link. The idea behind that was just come up with options that they felt did not have a fatal flaw to do the phasing, but also be able to design the building so that we could complete the work safely and work through it. From that, we then turned it over to the contractor, did the same assessment for them, look at the three options, final fatal flaw. If not, come up with an overall pricing estimate that you could with it. And they were able to complete all this within about a 3-week time period. It was a very heavy lift that we requested of them, but they all hit the ground running, worked really hard to come up with the options for us and prove that we could go to a multi-phase approach as compared to the 2-phase that we're initially starting with, and be able to do so safely for the passengers. With that though, it's about 2 to 3 years of additional construction time that we feel like going to the multi-phase from 2-phase. There is some additional costs, and we have to do a lot of the repetitive of the mobilization and demobilization of some of the workers that increase some of the costs to it. And we'll work the interior piece of the work separate of the exterior piece once we get more into the design and actually know which option we're going to go with. It looks like right now we're leaning more towards kind of the north-south approach. It seems to work the best on the initial structural design work that's going on, but we'll continue to evaluate as we move forward through this 30% design. Next slide. So with that, the overall increase to the budget, the rephase is the largest amount, about $300 million. Direct construction on that would be about $250 million. The other $50 million would cover the design and just overall costs for project management and staff for that additional 2 to 3 years of time, bringing it up to about $300 million in total. And that is ensuring that we have no more than 3 wide-body gates out of service at any one time throughout the entire life of the project. The remaining pieces at Cargo 3, 6, 7 and the D6 PLB conversion is about $179 million combined between all of them. And then as part of this, we are going to need to buy additional buses to get passengers to and from the hold room at Cargo 7. We also need to get staff shuttles so that the airlines can get their employees out there ahead of time so that they're ready to receive those passengers at the aircraft. We're also going to need some additional AVI ramps so that passengers can get from ramp level to the aircraft, and that overall ground support equipment in these different operating areas. So the overall increase that we're seeing for the program is $500 million, which is bringing our overall project budget range between $1.9 and $2.2 billion overall. Next slide, please. So the request today is to prepare those design and construction bid packages for the facilitating projects. Also, authorization to procure long lead items. The loading bridges for the D6 work, we're seeing anywhere from an 8 to 10 month lead time on those right now. We also want to be able to use port crews as necessary for design support, opening ceilings, get into some of the areas that we need to do the work. Execute an alternative delivery contract for the delivery method of the hold room out at Cargo 7, and then increase the authorization to $25 million for an overall authorization at this point in time of $127.5 million. And pending that, next slide, please. Any questions?
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for this detailed presentation. I will now open it up for questions from my colleagues. Commissioners, are there any questions at this time? Commissioner Fellman.
I told you Causeway was no good. We laid this bill on your feet. No, anyway, thank you so much. It's an enormous undertaking, and it also begs the question in terms of to do this in one reading is a little bit of a large bite. So tell me, from a time perspective, you guys seem to be off and running, and that's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but I'm just wondering, we don't have a full commission here, it's enormous amount of investment. To the degree that we make this a first reading, how much does this affect your schedule?
So right now, it would impact our schedule slightly if we was to wait 2 weeks for it. Anything beyond that, we would really start impacting the design starts, which impacts the overall gate closures of the base building, which we're scheduling right now is right after World Cup in 2026. It's still a fairly compressed time frame for us to be able to get all of these facilitating projects completed in time to support those closures of gates. But I would say 2 weeks would not make or break us per se.
Okay, and you're not suggesting this is done by World Cup. This is, you hope to have some gates operational by World Cup? Is that the goal?
All of our facilitating.
I'm just trying to hear that.
So
you know.
our goal is to have all the facilitating work done by World Cup, but we would not close any of the actual gates at S Concourse, those wide body gates, until after World Cup is complete. So that's why we're pushing hard on the facilitating work now so that we can meet that timeline. Even starting after World Cup, we're still looking at late 2033 to early 2034 with the multi-phase approach for schedule. And big piece of that is escalation. We'll just continue to eat into project budget over that time. So,
my major interest was like when we see this kind of infrastructure investment, that the ground support equipment, that we're going to have the infrastructure in place for electrification, even though power is, I think we're over allocated everywhere we look, everybody wants to plug in, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't have the ability to do so if we come up with a new generation. So are all of these gates going to be equipped, being able to run electric tugs, and do we have space for all that, and are we making space for it?
So we are actually lucky that the south end of the airport has some additional capacity. We will have to put in base infrastructure to make it work, and we are evaluating options when it comes to the electrical co-buses and everything moving forward. But the gates themselves will have the functionality to put the tugs out there for electrical tugs and everything. We're working as part of the building itself to provide that. We'll also provide the potable water cabinets for the aircraft at that point in time, and any of the other necessary pieces and components in and around Cargo 7. And then the gate D6 would be very similar to every other gate that we have now, has all of the attachments on there of the 400 hertz, PC air, everything's connected to the building.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner, I'd like to add to Commissioner Fellman's question. What you're authorizing today is $25 million, which is in addition to, it'll bring the total authorization to 120. We'll come back in first quarter of 2025 for the construction moving forward. I just want to clarify what the item before the commissioners today is.
Okay, well, that's important to acknowledge. I think I just had one other thought. So I understand we're going to be doing like more hard stands, right? That's the way we're going to get around this.
Correct.
And so I think I was saying when I was being briefed on this, most people don't know the term hard stand, but it's not a very positive connotation associated. So think about the scenic stand. So the bus ride, it will be a scenic amenity that we will be adding to your airport experience rather than putting you on the tarmac. Wasn't that what you were thinking?
Oh, planes, trains, and automobiles, Commissioner, give them a little bit of everything for their flight.
Anyway, I'm forever grateful for you guys to be able to think about phasing of something this complicated. And to your point, if indeed it was just I'm looking at 2.2 billion. I think I should have all my commissioners with me when we do that. But if this current ask is just of that, 25 million, I'm open to the conversation here. Thank you for that.
Commissioner Hasagawa, and then I'll go to Commissioner Cho, who I see your hand is up virtually.
Thank you, President Mohammed. I think for me, the question that I have is for a total project that will cost over $2 billion, how is this not a part of the Sustainable Airport Master Plan? How is it not involved under that purview?
We have our Director of Environmental here to help answer that.
Thank you. Hello, Sarah Cox, Director of Aviation, Environment, and Sustainability. As John and Chris noted, this is
Sarah's your mic on?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
This is a safety project, a seismic project, and is not adding any capacity to the facility. One of the primary purposes of SAM is to increase capacity both in the terminal and in gates. And so that is kind of the differentiator between the scope in SAMP versus these renewal and replacement in upgrade SEA project suite. I would like to note, though, in the SAMP environmental review, the cumulative impacts from this project are included in SAMP, if that does
Can you
get brought
explain
up.
cumulative impacts of this project?
So for the the air quality, transportation, the related impacts from this project and upgrade SEA projects are included in all the data analysis in SAMP and will be presented in the draft NEPA EA anticipated to be released in Q4 of this year.
Can you talk about the known or measured impacts on something like air pollution associated with this project?
Well, this project isn't increasing any of the capacity, so it would be, it's the construction impacts that would be accounted for in the SAMP environmental review data analysis.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cho?
Yeah, thanks, team. I appreciate the briefing. Could you please tell us what potential streams of federal funding or grant funding you've identified that this qualifies for and then maybe may pursue in the future between now and 2033?
Yeah, so right now we have about $226 million in the bipartisan infrastructure law grant funding. It's 5 $45+ million grants. We've already initiated the first grant at about $30 million. We're waterfalling the next one, the remaining $15 million into the next grant that we plan on asking for later this year. So overall, about $226 million total, working very closely with the contractor and designer for identifying all the Buy American components and all the pieces and parts we need to do to ensure that we meet all of the grant requirements. We're also looking at an overall project-wide waiver to ensure that we are able to get all of that amount of funding. And we're also working very closely with Finance and Budget. Robert Giacopetti and myself meet monthly and coordinate through the team for any potential additional grants that are out there. We did apply last year for some ATP grants. We were not selected, but we're going to continue to apply this year for it and then wait and see what the next set of grants looks like as released from the federal government. So $226 million right now, but continuing to pursue any that we can into the future.
That $226 million has not been factored into any of the cost estimates that we're voting on, right?
Correct, yeah, that is not accounted in the 1.9 to 2.2 billion yet.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner Fellman.
So I don't want to belabor the SAMP question, but I don't understand how you can account for impacts. I mean, I understand there's no new gates, but so if it's not in SAMP, why do you have to account for the impacts? I mean, you account for the impacts to do construction of a new job, like you would do anything, but why does it count in SAMP if it's not part of SAMP?
That is part of the environmental review process to identify projects that are occurring outside of the master plan process and to include them in your data analysis. And because this project will be occurring in the time frame of the SAMP projects, the construction elements associated with that are included.
So does that mean if the environmental review process doesn't come back favorably, that this project then is at a
No.
pause?
Because this project undergoes its own environmental review process, both,
Which is expected to be completed when?
believe we're starting it the end of this month, early June is when we'll be going out for the SEBA environmental review.
So assuming, how about if that results in it being unfavorable, does that pause the project and we've already made the investments and have gotten federal grants?
So the project, we would identify if there's additional mitigation actions that would need to be conducted based on the outcome of the environmental review.
So it'd extend the project and lead to additional investment as opposed to it actually pausing? Or
And it might not even that, it might be just how we design something. It would maybe be designed differently than it currently is proposed.
Thank you for those additional answers. Any further questions? Commissioner Feldman.
Now we got me going.
Yeah.
So, and it's your fault. It's, so, all right. SAMP isn't approved yet.
Correct.
So, and this project has obviously got legs. So, you know, so the environmental review of this project, clearly there's mitigations you can do for a project. You know, I guess the reality is if SAMP isn't approved, it doesn't jeopardize this project. This
Correct.
project has its own mitigation.
Correct.
It's just that this additional burden would not be added to SAMP if, you know, if that helps SAMP collapse on its own weight, then it would have to count towards that, but whether or not SAMP goes forward doesn't affect this.
Correct.
But this could affect SAMP going forward conceivably, although this would not be the biggest burden that SAMP has to face. But it is some weight on the environmental impact.
I'm hearing that it's a standalone.
It's a standalone, and
but it's being accounted for. The construction impacts are being accounted for. I'm not suggesting this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, but the point is, SAMP's approval has no impact on this, but this has some amount of impact on SAMP due to the fact that the construction impacts need to be considered.
If this project were not to go forward, it would just remove an input into the SAMP data analysis.
That's the inverse of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Hasagawa.
Though this action approval, as requested, is not a piecewise a step of approving SAMP.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Totally, completely isolated.
Thank you for answering those questions, and I know we're asking them on the fly, so I appreciate you being patient with us and answering those questions thoroughly. I did have a question for the project team. I know that you mentioned adding some funding for buses and supportive service personnel guidance. Could you maybe just speak to, and maybe this is further into the project, but just even signages, considering that this is a big construction project, let's say a train is down, how much investment are you guys making in things like signages and personnel guidance that can help customers move through the airport smoothly?
Yeah, so we have wayfinding built into all of the projects that need the use of a bus, which is all of them. So we have the wayfinding cost is built into all those so that we can put additional signage throughout the airport, and we're working very closely with customer experience, operations, and everything on where we can best put that signage to ensure that everyone understands how to get through the bus, especially the Cargo 7 hold room. It's going to be busing from the terminal to that in a continuous busing loop. So 3 buses running constantly, shuttling passengers to and from that area. So there'll be a lot more signage there. We're looking at likely using the A2021 as the best option right now. And with that, we'll have some additional signage budget is built into that overall $179 million cost that we have.
And can you compare that maybe to like other projects that we've seen at the airport? Is that double, triple?
I would say overall it's fairly comparative. It's just the standard that we need to. For the base building itself, we have a significantly larger amount going to the multi-phase, and that's just because as gates are closed in different patterns throughout, it'll be more complex for passengers to get through. We'll also have the temporary walls and everything similar to the Gateway project going on the north side of the terminal now. So we do have additional cost built in there that's probably, if not double, triple of what other projects would have for wayfinding, because it's not just, the end state. We are looking at throughout the construction process with everything, what's needed to have that highest customer experience overall that we can.
How do you guys measure the success of that, of just the wayfinding? Like, is it just, do you guys survey customers? I think for commissioners, that's probably one of the areas that we hear about the most.
Yeah, so customer experience does do surveys all the time, looking through the different areas and asking those questions during construction, and that's something that we're working very diligently with them. External relations also does go out and try to do everything ahead of time, releasing videos, different articles in the news to explain to everyone what the next big changes are going to be. So our goal is to, that early and constant communication with the public through every means available as our overall goal.
Thank you for that. All right, commissioners, are there any further questions for this item before we move forward? Thank you all for the presentation. Hearing no further questions for this item, is there a motion and a second to approve item 10C?
So moved.
Commissioner Cho moved it, and I heard Commissioner Fellman seconded it. Commissioners, are there any additional discussions or debates on this item? Hearing none, Clerk Hart, please call the roll for the vote. Commissioners, please say aye or nay when your name is called.
Thank you. Beginning with Commissioner Cho.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Fellman.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hasegawa.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed.
Aye.
Thank you. 4 ayes and 0 nays for this item.
Thank you. The motion has passed. Thank you all for the presentation again. Commissioners and Executive Director Metric, the time right now is 1:58 p.m. I will be going, we'll be going on to recess for about 5 minutes. And I believe that Commissioner Cho will be dropping from the call at this time. And so we will be back at 2:05. Thank you all.
Thank you. We are in recess.
Lance, do you like that brand?
Let me know when to begin.
Anytime.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. This is Commission President Hamdi Mohammed reconvening our regular meeting of May 14, 2024. The time is now 2:07. We are returning from our recess. Moving us along to the next part of our agenda, which is presentation and staff reports. Clerk Hart, please read the next item into the record, and then Executive Director Metrick will introduce the item.
Thank you. This is Agenda Item 11A, the SCA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable 2023 Annual Report.
Commissioners, I'm pleased to introduce the annual report on the SCA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, START, which was initiated and led by Aviation Managing Director Lance Little. START continues to play an essential role to enhance cooperation between the Port and the Highline Forum member cities of Sea-Tac, Burien, Des Moines, Normandy Park, Tukwila, and Federal Way. Alaska and Delta Airlines also serve on START and on the FAA, and the FAA provides agency expertise. Over the last year, START has fully focused on implementing tangible solutions that address aircraft noise and emissions issues. Today's presentation will cover some of the accomplishments in 2023 and offer some community perspectives. The presenters this afternoon are Managing Director of Aviation, Lance Little, and, another title I see here, Lance, is START Chair, I guess, is that. Eric Shinfield, Senior Manager, Federal and International Government Relations, and Marco Milanese, Senior Program Manager, Community Engagement. With that, I'll turn it over to Lance.
Yes. Thank you, Executive Director Metrick, and good afternoon again, Commissioners. Really appreciate this opportunity to update the Port of Seattle Commission on the SCA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable. As Executive Director Metrick said, I'm joined by Eric Shinfield and Marco Milanese. Next slide, please. So I want to begin today's presentation with a quick overview of START, including its purpose and structure. Then I will highlight the successful efforts, programs, and initiatives that the Aviation Noise Working Group and the Federal Policy Working Group achieved in 2023 and also in 2024. I will then be joined by Eric and Marco, who will assist in answering any questions that you may have. Next slide. So we are very aware of the confines and the constraints that the airport have within the community. The Port of Seattle, however, is committed to building open relationship with the community and the local cities that foster trust, accountability, and collaboration. One of the challenges we had prior to 2018 was the community members would come to the commission meeting, they'd voice their concerns about noise and other impacts that the airport had on the community, but nothing would happen. It would just be this cycle over and over and over again. And we decided that we had to do something about it, and we were looking at a solution. What is it that we do about it? At the same time, one of the city came up with this very idea. The FAA also came up with this idea, so it was kind of like the perfect storm, a good storm, and we all got together, and that was the creation of START in 2018. So next slide, please. So working in close collaboration with the leadership from the 6 cities Steve mentioned, the Highline Forum member cities of Sea-Tac, Burien, Des Moines, Normandy Park, Tukwila, and Federal Way. The Port of Seattle and its partners developed START to enhance cooperation between the port and the airport communities. START provides the Port of Seattle with a dedicated forum for discussing and tackling airport and aviation concerns from Highline Forum members, cities, and their residents. Next slide. So each city designates 3 members to serve on START, who are joined by a representative from Alaska Airlines and Delta Airlines and port staff. The Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, provides agency expertise. As the airport managing director, I serve as the chair, and I dedicate the necessary staff, consultant support, and technical expertise to assist START with its work. Meetings are held every other month. They were facilitated in the beginning, in 2023, by Brian Scott and now by Andres Mateo, both with Uncommon Bridges. In 2021, START Steering Committee was established to provide support, guidance, and strategic direction for the roundtable. The Steering Committee is also responsible for determining START's membership or any changes to how START operates. The port, the 6 cities, and the 2 airlines are all represented on the steering committee. Now, I know it's been an issue that has been brought to Commission's attention previously. I want to assure Commissioners that START Steering Committee has considered requests by other communities to join START. Each time the Steering Committee members discussed and have decided to retain the current membership size. START also created 2 working groups to empower START members to work on identified priorities between the START meetings. That's the Aviation Noise Working Group and the Federal Policy Working Group. START's major accomplishments are primarily the result of the efforts initiated by these 2 working groups. Next slide, please. In 2023, START's Aviation Noise Working Group, with a mission to prioritize and explore potential near-term actions to reduce and prevent aviation noise, continued to focus its effort on the aviation near-term noise action agenda. This included reviewing and refining work associated with several of the agenda's initiatives and exploring new potential initiatives to include within the agenda. Next slide. Now, before diving into 2023, let me quickly recap the working group's previous accomplishment. You heard interim city manager Kyle Moore mention some of them. Launched in 2019, the Late Night Noise Limitation Program is a voluntary effort to reduce late night noise by incentivizing air carriers to fly at less noise-sensitive hours or transition to quieter aircraft. The program includes regular reporting each quarter to START, air carriers, and other external audiences on all airline noise exceedances above established noise threshold in the late night hours. In early 2021, the program achieved its first success with EVA Air switching to the quieter 787 during the late night hours. In 2023, the program witnessed a second success with FedEx Express, which had been the late night air carrier with the most noise exceedances post EVA Airways. In 2023, FedEx Express began incorporating into their fleet the quieter 767 in place of the older and much noisier MD-11. So leadership from the port and the Highline Forum cities sent a congratulatory letter to FedEx Express encouraging the carrier to continue forward with their fleet renewal efforts. The other is the informal runway use plan, minimizes use of the third runway during the late night hours, and late night operations on this runway have dropped dramatically since implementation of the plan in late 2019. Prior to the runway use plan, the third runway averaged 12 to 13 operations during the late night hours. In 2023, the average was less than 2 operations per night. That's a significant impact there. And on 240 of the 365 late night nights in 2023, there were 0 operations on the third runway, which means 2/3 of the time, no operations on the third runway. Upon the working group's urging, the port provides up-to-date, accessible, and detailed information on the noise complaints and comments submitted by the public. Online monthly report began in 2020, and report outs are provided at all working group meetings. Finally, reverse thrust is used by pilots to decelerate aircraft upon landing. It is also an identified source of ground noise at SCA. In coordination with the FAA, the air carriers, and the members of the working group, updated language discouraging the use of reverse thrust beyond what is necessary was strengthened in early 2023 and followed by a summer air carrier awareness campaign. Next slide, please. So turning to 2023, the working group continued to explore initiatives and programs that could potentially provide aviation noise relief to the Highline Forum member cities. In May 2023, the working group drafted language promoting continuous taxi takeoffs, also known as rolling takeoffs. Continuous taxi to takeoffs have less of a noise footprint than traditional takeoffs and require aircraft to power up after coming to a complete stop. In coordination with the FAA, the air carriers, and the members of the working group, new voluntary SCA language promoting continuous taxi to takeoff was enacted and followed by a summer air carrier awareness campaign to encourage greater use by pilots. Single-engine taxiing is an established practice at SCA, and though it has a modest effect on reducing noise, it does have a measurable effect on reducing aircraft emission over dual-engine taxiing. Language promoting this use is currently in development, and when complete, will be shared with the working group for consideration and implementation. Finally, near the end of 2023, the working group began to make its transition to serving as the SCA Part 150 Noise Studies Technical Review Committee. A Part 150 noise study is required by the FAA to update airport noise programs, establish eligibility for FAA grant funds, and assesses the noise compatibility of SCA with the surrounding communities. A Part 150 study also evaluates current and possible new efforts to lessen the effects of aircraft noise on the surrounding communities. Airports typically stand up a technical review committee during a Part 150 study and task it with providing technical input and guidance throughout the life of the study. The working group will play that role officially beginning in June and continue its engagement with the study over the next several years. Next slide, please. So, START's Federal Policy Working Group is focused on changing federal policies and regulations that can give the FAA, the port, and the communities more tools, resources, and flexibilities to address aircraft noise and emission concerns. You have heard us say we're so constrained in terms of what we can do to assist the communities, and so the focus of the policy working group is to make changes at this level. Over the last few years, we have been focused on doing so through implementation of a shared Port Cities Federal Policy Priorities Agenda. As far as we know, SCA is one of the only airports in the country that has collaborated with its surrounding jurisdiction on a shared federal advocacy agenda. Now, what makes this joint effort particularly powerful is that it allows us to bring focused asks to our congressional delegation, which makes it easier for our federal elected officials to prioritize their engagement on these issues. Next slide, please. At the beginning of last year, the port and the airport cities sent a joint letter to the Washington congressional delegation highlighting 7 key aircraft noise and emission policy priorities for proposed inclusion in the 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act. We knew that the FAA Reauthorization Act represented the best near-term opportunity to pass these priorities into law, particularly because of how well positioned our congressional delegation is in terms of crafting this legislation. In support of these priorities, we conducted the first ever joint Port Cities DC flying at the end of April. Approximately 20 elected officials and port and staff from the port and the airport cities traveled to the other Washington to advocate directly for these policies. And I'm pleased to share that we were very successful in these efforts. 4 of our 7 priorities made it into the final version of the FAA bill. Yay! You can see these wins on the screen. Legislation that provides the port with increased flexibility related to North Sea-Tac Park was also included as well. So success on various different angles. In addition to the tangible impact that these policies will have, we also want to celebrate how this demonstration of solidarity and collaboration proved that working together is the best way to address community concerns about aircraft noise and emission. The Federal Policy Working Group also engaged in several other activities, including submitting a 10-page joint letter to the FAA in response to their noise policy review, which is looking at alternatives to the current 65 DNL noise metric. Next slide, please. So we have spent most of 2024 to date pushing for final passage of the FAA legislation, and I am pleased to share that the United States Senate passed the bill on Friday. We expect the House to follow suit tomorrow, and so this effort will be completed by the end of the week. Unfortunately, we were unable to get the secondary noise insulation policy into the final bill, but we hope to attach it to other legislation later in the year. Still, it is a huge win for all of us, so congratulations. In addition to our ongoing federal work, we are launching a major new effort. The Federal Policy Working Group will transition to the State and Federal Policy Working Group, and we will look to replicate our DC successes in Olympia. By the end of the year, we plan to have a list of shared Port City's priorities to share with the governor and the state legislature. And then we will plan to organize an Olympia Day modeled after the DC flying. I look forward to engaging commissioners in that effort as we move forward and report back on the trip after it happens. Next slide, please. So, Commissioners, I want to say thank you and Executive Director Metric for providing me with this opportunity to present today. In addition, I really want to say thank to everyone who played a key role in 2023 that made what I just summarized possible. I'd like to particularly call out the community and the city members who represent their cities and their fellow residents' interest to START. They serve START because of their deep commitment to public service and because they genuinely want to tackle issues facing the city. I also want to thank the airlines, the Delta Airlines, Alaska Airlines for participating. And of course, we come down hard all the time on the FAA, but all these successes that we have had, we would not be successful without the participation of the FAA. I'd also like to really thank some of the unsung heroes. Marco, right here, Eric, Claire, I'm not sure if Claire is here, Sarah Cox, Tom, all these folks that have really throughout the year made this successful. Commissioner, when I've been asked on many occasions what's the most difficult part of my job, and apart from some security stuff that I can't talk about, the most difficult part of my job is to try to continue to grow the airport to keep pace with the tremendous growth that's taking place in the region, and at the same time mitigate the impacts on the community. That's the most difficult part of my job. And that's why START is so important to me, the airport, the port, and the community, because it really addresses in a practical way and come up with practical solutions. And I'm really glad that we're not only seeing success on the noise working group side, but even now on the policy working group side, which is probably the more difficult or challenging component. So just want to say thank you for having me here today and allowing me to present the report, and thanks to everyone for a very successful year during START. If there are any questions, Mark and Eric will be able to answer all of them.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open it up for questions. Commissioner Hasegawa.
Thank you so much for that presentation. My first question is who is our commission representative upon START?
So we do
don't
not
have one.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do not have any elected
Okay.
officials on START.
And that's intentional?
That's intentional.
Can you talk about that, please?
I
Yeah,
did join the DC fly-in, though.
Yes, they did join the DC flying. Mark, I might want to elaborate a little bit more. No, the DC flying was
They definitely
can't sit with you.
I'll let Marco address it first, and then I can.
Marco Milanese, Community Engagement Manager here at the airport. And one of the primary reasons is because we had the Highline Forum, which is already in place. And so we had a forum for elected officials to talk to other elected officials. So this is something in addition where you had more of that community representation.
Mm-hmm. So the understanding was the START group would report up to the Highline Forum, which would have port commission representative, elected representative, as well as representative from all the Highline Forum cities as well. So we'd be the working group and the advisory group that reports up to the Highline Forum.
So elected representation is built into the structure of
Yes.
START. That's helpful. You know, START being called the SCA stakeholder advisory group, and the marked accomplishments of the group, I think shows exactly why we hear from so many folks that they want to be a part of that conversation. And, you know, we hear from folks from Beacon Hill who want membership at START, and we hear from folks at Vashon Island who want membership at START. And it's also important to note that they have, you know, unique challenges when it comes to airport impacts. And so I guess my question for you is, if you go to slide 8, and you talk about the technical review committee. What?
The last bullet there, yes, the Part 150.
Oh, there it is. Sorry, my wires are in the way. So for the Part 150 noise study, that's underway, and it has a technical review committee. START as a whole is a part of the technical review committee, or are there other members on that?
Do you want me to? So we already have a aviation noise working group. So we thought in terms of making it easy for the process is we turned that aviation noise working group into the technical review committee. So there'll be meetings that will be specific to the Part 150 that will happen at the working group level, and there will be meetings when they revert back to being that aviation noise working group.
Aviation is a subgroup from START.
It is. Both the aviation noise working group and the federal policy working group are subsets of START. So
Subsets of START, not subsets of Highline Forum that are adjacent to START.
they are subsets of START.
Okay, so it seems to me that the Part 150 noise study will also take in consideration noise impacts outside of airport adjacent cities, though, correct?
Yes.
So can we talk about potential for membership for groups like Beacon Hill or Vashon Island on the technical review committee?
The technical review committee will be focused on a kind of a technical nature, and so we do plan a robust and comprehensive outreach plan for our Part 150 study. So there will be opportunities for us to go to Beacon Hill, Vashon, and other places to get input and gather information from those communities. And that's a pledge that we're going to have.
But technical review committee with membership as a subset of START seems like its function would be for like civilian or community oversight of the process and to be able to advise, review, guide, provide feedback. Seeing as the stakeholders in Part 150 are broader than just immediately airport adjacent cities, why are we not talking about, why are they being excluded from the opportunity to provide oversight or feedback
I think
as a committee member?
I think one aspect of it is when you talk about a technical review committee, it's very focused on that 65 DNL around the airport and understanding where it is in relation to those communities. And that 65 DNL is really representative of those close-in airport cities. And so to have a Shoreline or a Kirkland or somewhere that far out as part of it wouldn't be a ton of use to them.
Beacon Hill isn't as quite far out as Shoreline, but the issue is that they are excluded from opportunities based upon Part 150 saying that 64 DNL is the standard in order to be included, and because we're assuming that they're not going to be included because they're not 64 DNL in a process to reassess their DNL level, seems like it's not lending itself towards faith in the process itself, when the idea of a review committee, as it seems to me, is that they could have faith, input, oversight in the process. So if we're talking about integrity in the process for the Part 150 study that will lend itself towards an outcome in DNL levels, why would we not include them as part of that process?
So let's take that. Thanks for the insight and the guidance. We can take that back and
certainly,
and we'll come back to you on that, Commissioner.
Thank
Let's
you
take a
so
look at
much.
that.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
I know you guys are going to come back with an answer for Commissioner Hasagawa, but isn't it just fair to say, as part of this Part 150 study, we're going to actually see the 65 DNL shrink, so the likelihood that it's going to go even outside to Beacon Hill or Vashon Island and other places is very unlikely.
I'll defer to the
I'm getting
expert,
ahead
but
of you guys,
I
but I
don't,
think
even though, Commissioner, we have quieter airplanes, we actually have more operations. So I don't know if there's any guarantee it will
We're
shrink.
spending thousands of dollars on a study that we already know predetermined outcomes. So I'm talking about integrity of the process itself, so that we all have faith in, and the stakeholders who see themselves as stakeholders who have historically been excluded from the process would see.
So let us
have
take that
faith in
back
the
for
process.
discussion, and then we'll come back and report back to you, Commissioner.
And can you go to slide 11, please? I did want to just congratulate members of START, President Mohammed, members of staff who have put so much into how START can be such a thoughtful advocacy group. I think that's incredibly important. And indeed, the proof is in the pudding with tremendous outcomes and wins via the FAA reauthorization bill. It made its way through Senate, and President Biden just last week did approve the 1-week extension so that the House might act on it. When I had the privilege of talking with the President of the United States last Friday, I thanked him and congratulated him, and he said, so far, so good. So I think that bodes very well for the act. Congratulations on that, and I definitely concur with the thought of expanding the work of the work group to include state policy as well, particularly given what I'm hearing you voice, Director Little, about the crux of our challenge being how to manage growth to meet demand. And the burden that that puts on us, and knowing that that is an overburden, not just Sea-Tac, it's SEA as an airport, but also the adjacent community that has to bear that impact. So the state is going to have a lot to do with that, particularly as we're looking for them to be leaders in identifying another option for air travel. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Hasagawa, for those questions and comments. Commissioner Fellman.
Thank you very much. And the existential challenge of why I'm in office is for that very reason. It's absolutely the greatest challenge we have, to reduce impacts while growing. So thank you for agreeing to grapple with this challenge, and this is why we're in public service. And I really think that the START Committee has been fantastic, and your personal presence in that and the Highline Forum gives some gravitas to the community members that are there that I think really shows that the port is serious about this participation, and I thank you for all that time, as well as all the other staff that support you. It's been a remarkable road, and to watch, just look at how fewer people are coming to our commission meetings to complain. They have a better place to vent, right? So I think that really means that they're being heard, which is key to that thing, but they're not just being heard, the likes of Schoenfeld and else, that we get to actually get it done, be responsive, not just tap people on the head. This is a remarkable accomplishment, and I'm forever grateful, as the community is. And I just want to give one point that sort of segues into the next presentation. We know from forever that nighttime noise is a particularly impactful grading influence, and it also affects sleep, it affects health. It is like one of the places that I think are, of all the efforts, that it has some real focus and is very noticeable to the mitigation. And you showed with EVA Air and with FedEx that you've made these accomplishments there. I know when we get to the awards, maybe it's a more appropriate place, but so who's next? Like who's the next airline that we need to focus on? And I know for the awards program, we modified the awards. Like, we also have the ones that need to be most improved. And we never report on that, but I know that we are tracking that. And so I just ask that maybe, given the weight the community puts on the evening flights, and I can never remember whether it's Air China or China Air, but we know this one flight that everybody has on their phone, and if we need to go to headquarters, if we need to tell us that one flight alone, but there must be others, and so I just urge you to help us target those places where we can really make a difference. But you've obviously made a huge difference up to now, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners, and we're still talking to said airline, hoping to make some progress one day. But just coming back to something you said earlier, it's really about the collaboration. I think one of the key things that we owe our success to is having all the key stakeholders at the table. So we have the airlines, we have the port, and we have the cities at the table. And we, when we're looking at some of these issues by ourselves, we're looking at the noise impact of, takeoff and landing, et cetera. But when we sat with the cities, they're like, okay, there's ground noise as well that we weren't really focusing on. And so just having that conversation with the cities that, hey, there's ground noise, we start looking at reverse thrust and a whole bunch of other ground noise impacts and trying to mitigate this as well. So actually sitting down with the cities and listening to some of the challenges they have as well has made a big, big difference in terms of what we focus on. So.
Any additional comments or questions? Well, I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and start with thanking Director Little and your entire team for the hard work that you all put in to set up START, make it work, and that partnership that you've built with the near airport cities. I've seen it in action. I was proud to be able to join START for the DC fly-in and spent a lot of time with those cities and their representatives, the elected officials from those cities, and got to hear directly from them how well they believe that START is working for them and their representatives that sit on the START committee. And I also want to thank Eric Schoenfeld for all of your hard work on the federal level to help push these policies forward. It's not a small task that you took on. You regularly keep all of us updated, including the START committee members, and being able to have 4 of our items out of the 7 is a huge victory, and it's one that I think near airport communities should be very proud of. We always talk about how the port is a special purpose government, and it really takes partnerships at all levels of government to make all of the things that we do work, and I think this is just one example of seeing that in action. Obviously, I'm disappointed that the sound installation is not included, but I am hopeful that that will be included in later legislations that come about. I did want to just talk about Vashon. We hear a lot from the Vashon community, and especially as elected officials, elected by all of King County voters, including those who are in the Vashon community. Would you say, Director Little, or I don't know who wants to comment on this, that the noise in that neighborhood now has increased over time compared to what it was before? What are the noise levels for Vashon? What do we think?
I'll let Tom address that.
The hot seat. I'm Tom Fagerstrom. I'm a noise programs manager. I would say that noise levels on Vashon have increased as operations have increased over the years. So that much is true, and that's part of what we're going to be overall assessing for Part 150. And I will, one little point of clarification: we absolutely don't know that the contour or the boundary is going to shrink as a part of this Part 150.
What is the history of that Part 150 study shown? Has it increased in the last study?
Has the noise increased since the last study?
Yeah, when the last Part 150 study took place, did the 65 DNL mapping increase or did it shrink?
It shrank because we were updating a boundary that had been in place since the 1980s. We were allowed to keep a very large boundary in place for a long period of time because of the third runway project. So when the third runway opened up, we began a new Part 150 study right the next year. And so the boundary did shrink because of aircraft that have been introduced since the 1980s are dramatically quieter. This time, the change will not be that dramatic at all. In fact, we've had increases in operations in the last decade. So we'll see what happens with that contour, but it will not be the dramatically smaller contour like the last time because because that previous contour was so old from the 1980s.
Yeah, and my comments wasn't certain, but just if history tells us anything and knowing that planes are getting quieter, I think there is some fair assumptions to be made that it's not going to increase into Beacon Hill. Possibly sounds like Vashon Island. So Tom, knowing that the noise levels have increased in the Vashon community, what is your office doing to engage that community specifically? If they can't be included in the START committee or at that table, is there a separate table that they're being engaged on issues of noise?
Well, our office responds to all inquiries that require a response from Vashon Island, and we continue to provide information. We placed a noise monitor on the island at their request for over a year of temporary monitoring, and went to their community to provide a report on that monitoring. And we will do so again at their request. Our temporary monitors are available for request in that sense again.
Can you just share a little bit when you say you went to their community to report on that? What does that mean?
We met with the Vashon Maury Island Community Council.
Okay.
And had a full presentation on the 13 months of noise monitoring that we did on the island.
And what did those results say, and what was the outcome of that discussion?
Well, the outcome was we reported the noise levels. It's hard to come to conclusions based on noise monitoring at one location. Often the ambient noise levels were higher than the aircraft noise levels at times, because the aircraft are at a certain altitude of 6,000 feet or so. So there weren't strong conclusions, but all of the data was provided.
And Commissioner, can I just add, we continue to believe that
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Eric Schinfeld, Federal Government Relations for the Port of Seattle. One of the best tables for the Vashon community is the table between them and the FAA. And we continue to push really, really hard for the FAA to meet directly with Vashon. Director Little has been incredibly direct with the FAA and strong-worded in his conversations with them, and we continue to make what I would call incremental progress in getting them to understand that they are going to need to put resources towards this. We obviously meet with them on a regular basis. Marco and I are going to meet with them again to talk a little bit more about some of the things going on, but if we can get them directly to meet with the FAA, that's really going to be where the conversation about where the airplanes fly and what to do about that will come from. So that continues to be our number one focus, in addition to other forums that we can create for community members to come and give feedback.
And I'm assuming we've shared the data with them, right? That the noise increase and the results that you're getting, sharing that information with
We
the
shared
FAA.
the data from the noise monitoring session.
With the FAA.
With the FAA. They were free to review it. I don't know that it was shared with the FAA.
We'll do that after
But we
this.
can do
That's a
that,
great
certainly.
suggestion.
Yeah, because I think that's an important point, right? If they maybe see the data, that would encourage them to consider meeting with the community and maybe taking some action. Yeah, Commissioner Asagawa has a question.
Does Beacon Hill have like a meeting with the FAA the same way that Vashon Island does?
So the FAA only comes to start. That has been their stated preference, is that they will come to start. They have claimed that they do not have the resources to meet with other communities like Beacon Hill and Vashon. We highly encourage them to do so. And so, yes, to your point, not only do we want them to meet with Vashon, we want them to meet with Beacon Hill. We want them to meet with lots of different communities outside the 65 DNL. And I think there are creative ways to do that. If they feel like they can't go one by one, maybe we create sort of a non-65 DNL noise forum where the FAA could come one time and talk about some of the issues and impacts. So we continue to look at creative solutions there, but I appreciate the clarification. It is not just us saying, go talk to Vashon, then you're off the hook and have a good rest of your life. It has to be all of these different communities that have concerns.
Well, I guess I'll just reiterate the interest is that it's not the 64 DNL advisory committee, it's the
Yes.
SEA stakeholder advisory committee, which is why folks want to have space at that table. What is the Port of Seattle planning on in terms of engagement for other stakeholder groups outside of START around the Part 150 study? And if that's beyond the scope of this subject, then that's fine too.
If I could just add, and Tom, if you got anything else to include, but we do have 3 community meetings planned for early June in surrounding airport communities to give folks an opportunity to come in and learn about the process, provide their input and feedback. And then after that, we are going to plan some targeted outreach to community groups beyond those close-in communities to go talk to them about the Part 150 process as well. And that is in design with our consultants right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fellman has a question, and then I have one.
Okay, so one thing we neglected to thank is our congressional delegation who actually took these recommendations and ran with them. The fact that we have the chairperson of the Commerce Committee in Senator Cantwell made a big difference, having Adam Smith in the district and Rick Larson on committee. So we are very appreciative of your work, but super thankful for the folks that had the ears to hear us. So that's one thing. The question about Vashon Beacon Hill, it's obviously been out there a long time. I worked very closely with the folks on Vashon Island to get us the first temporary monitoring unit. Their argument is very compelling in that it's a rural community, and that so the background noise, you say, is maybe a higher altitude, but they don't have a lot of other significant noises, so it's very noticeable. But also the change in flight path was significant, right? So it goes straight down the spine in a very narrow way. So I think the change in exposure over a short period of time is very easily documented. Now, what I what I seem to recall with DNL analysis, though, I didn't think it was actually based on not the frequency of the noise, but the frequency of the flights, and that it is the noise levels, not the persistence of the noise. So, right, so I thought we're talking about, an absolute measurement or a modeling of this measurement, but not like how long it's occurring. I mean, am I mistaken by this? I thought it's the difference between day and night.
Yeah.
Well, but also the point is, after the third runway came in, the DNL shrank, right?
Well, there were a lot of factors.
But I'm
why
just
that
saying,
happened,
if
but
frequency
yes.
was the issue, if that was, well, anyway, I'll let you answer.
Frequency of overflights is baked into DNL, and a lot of folks would say maybe not enough, and that's why the FAA is doing their noise policy review, looking at the DNL standard and the number assigned to it. But it is weighted more heavily, as you know, at nighttime. Nighttime noise is weighted 10 times greater than daytime noise as part of DNL. Have I answered your question? I'm not sure.
So the percentage of time that at night versus days, that weighting, but so the overall number of flights, right now, if the average plane is of this decibel 10 years ago, and now it's of that decibel lower 10 years later, but they're more frequent, even though they're quieter per plane, that will weigh against them. The quieter planes run more frequently, could potentially maintain
Yes.
the same DNL with fewer louder planes.
I think I know what you mean. The source of the noise is the most important. The noise level of the noise source is the most impactful.
And not how many.
More than how many, yes.
See, that to me is where the challenge lies, right? And that would be part of the 150 study, is to see whether that weighting changes.
Well, Part 150 is very strict. It's 65 DNL is the standard, and within.
So then the number of flights, I mean, like I said, with the third runway going in and the DNL shrinking, it seems contrary to the question of, well, more flights matter.
Well,
you said it's an old.
As I say, there was a lot of reasons, and we spent most of the last Part 150 explaining that, trying to explain that, because it was a difficult concept. Is that the original boundary was placed there when 727s and DC-8s and really loud aircraft were flying. It was based on a very large forecast out to the year 2000, which is unusual for a Part 150. So it was big. And so we were allowed to keep that in place for many years because of the third runway project. So yes, there were a lot of moving. The airport was busier when we reassessed the noise in 2014, but aircraft were a lot quieter. So there was a lot of different factors in play there that caused that boundary to shrink, despite the fact that the airport had more takeoffs and landings than.
Okay, so
than
just
the
to
80s.
conclude, though, I think you got a sense from my colleagues that there needs to be a role of Vashon and Beacon Hill. They have substantive expertise, right? They're not just complaining neighbors, right? We have folks that are part of a community impacted study that, let's find a method for it. And I know, if I was in the STAR committee and I wanted to keep the focus on my backyard, I can appreciate them wanting to close the door behind them, but we're a public agency, and we're King County wide. And so at a certain point in time, either we create another committee or we break the doors open on this one. So let's find a way to make there a substantive role for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Felleman. And just to add to that, I think it would be helpful to, one, provide the data, the Vashon data, showing that there is an increase of noise in Vashon to the FAA. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask Eric is, have we brought this to the attention of our congressional delegation? Because I think they would, I would imagine FAA would listen to the delegation over us, obviously.
You might think that's true. Unfortunately, it's not. Representative Jayapal wrote a very clear letter to the FAA saying you need to meet with Vashon. They did not. When Steve and Lance and I were in DC back in March, Representative Jayapal asked again about this, and she was disappointed to hear they have not been responsive. She is planning to elevate that request higher than the FAA. And so I think we'll continue to see focus on that as well. I do want to say that there's really two tracks to this, right? One is, of course, what can we do within the existing policy, the Part 150 based on the 65 DNL, but also, as Lance mentioned earlier, there is also the FAA noise policy review that we wrote our very detailed 10-page letter, and we specifically called out the issues of Beacon Hill and Vashon in our letter, saying, as you reevaluate the 65 DNL, you need to be thinking about locations that are geographically higher, locations that have significant frequency under a next-gen flight path. And so that is part of our feedback to the FAA. We did, in the successful inclusion of the FAA bill, say now the FAA has to have some conclusions within 1 year of enactment around the 65 DNL change, and they have to have a stakeholder advisory committee that includes airport communities. So we really feel like, yes, we're in some ways hamstrung as part of the 150, but that doesn't mean on the federal policy level and federal engagement that we can't also continue to push and say, this is not working. There are clearly concerns outside the 65 DNL, and so what does the federal government want to do about that? And here's some ideas that we have.
That's right. Thank you so much for doing that and for providing those additional answers. Again, I want to thank you all for the presentation. I don't know where Director Little went. There you are. Overall, this is great work that you all are doing, and I know it's a difficult challenge that you're taking on. And I do echo the comments of Commissioner Fellman, and big thank you to our federal delegation. They've worked really, really hard in partnering with the Port of Seattle, hearing our comments, meeting with us, and helping pass the FAA reauthorization bill. And so we thank them. We've done it in writing, multiple letters saying thank you to them, and so we continue to say that. Thank you all for the presentation. If there's no additional comments, I will move us along. Thank you. Clerk Hart, please introduce the next item into the record, and then Executive Director Metric can introduce the item.
Thank you. This is Agenda Item 11B, the Sustainable Century and Fly Quiet Awards.
Commissioners, in this presentation, Port staff are pleased to announce the winners of the Port's 2023 Sustainable Century Awards for the Aviation and Maritime Divisions. These awards recognize our customers, tenants, nonprofits, and partners for outstanding accomplishments in the area of environment and sustainability. Award winners serve as role models and demonstrate exceptional leadership in helping the Port achieve our sustainability goals as set forth in the Century Agenda. The Port will host an awards luncheon on May 30th, honoring awardees and celebrating their accomplishments. All commissioners are invited to join the celebration. Similarly, we are pleased to recognize this year's winners of the Port's Fly Quiet Awards. This program celebrates airlines for their efforts to reduce noise at SEA. The annual Fly Quiet Awards were developed by Port staff and a Citizen Advisory Committee in 2005 to increase airline and pilot awareness of aircraft noise impacts on local communities. They are a key part of our multifaceted effort to reduce the impact of airport and aircraft operations on local residents. And so this afternoon we have Sandra Kilroy, Senior Director of Environment Sustainability with us. We have Jane Duell, Manager Stormwater Utility, Jeremy Webb, Environmental Program Manager, and Paris Edwards Airport Noise Programs Coordinator. So I think we'll, Sandy, turn over to you to kick it off. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Executive Director Metric. I am honored to kick off this year's announcement of our Sustainable Century and Fly Quiet Award winners. This is my favorite commission presentation of every year. We have been running this awards program since 2010, and it is really to highlight the individual contributions of businesses, other governments, and organizations on how they contribute to our environment and sustainability goals. I think you know that the Port has positioned itself as a leader on sustainability, and we do that both by demonstrating our own commitment and actions and by setting the bar high and influencing others to do the same. To achieve our goals, we need partnerships. Commissioner Mohammed talked about this in the last item. You know, we need partnerships. We can't do it alone. And so these partnerships with businesses, nonprofit groups, with other governments is really critical for us. We all need to be working together and rowing in the same direction. So this awards program allows us to highlight these partners' efforts. Next slide. I think I talked about most of that, and just to note that we will be doing both the Sustainable Century Awards and the Fly Quiet Awards, and this program is really managed and administered by the staff who will be presenting today. And next slide. So we have 10 organizations that are receiving the Sustainable Century Awards this year. These organizations demonstrate both the everyday operational changes that can be implemented to make a difference, as well as the vision and long-term goals that are needed for sustainability. They truly serve as models, and I'm honored that we can recognize their efforts today. So just to quickly read them off, and then we'll get into more details, we have Alaska Airlines, Alaska Marine Lines, Concessions International, Condor Airlines, McDonald's, StormwaterControls.com, Quiet Sound, Delta, and Southwest. Those are our Sustainable Century Award winners. The Fly Quiet Award winners will be introduced later. So I do want to give my personal congratulations to all these winners. And I'm going to now pass the mic to the employees on my team who really do the heavy lifting of administering this awards program every year. And they'll present what each individual organization has done to win this honor. Thank you. So Jane Duell.
Thanks, Sandy. Good afternoon, Edie Metrick and commissioners. So for the Maritime Awards, I want to first point out our Environmental Performance Award. Oh, next slide, please. Is recognizing Alaska Marine Lines for significant energy and emissions reductions associated with transport refrigeration. Their achievements include reduced diesel fuel use and air emissions by 75%, and increased use of local clean energy through high-efficiency transport refrigeration units in that picture there, and timeshare electric panels. The energy reductions in 2023 amounted to over 1 million gallons of diesel, which is equivalent to 11,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide. This level of greenhouse gas emissions or reductions is equivalent to 2,547 gas-powered cars off the road, or the energy use of 1,396 homes annually. The next award winner on the maritime side, next, is the Muckleshoot Tribe. Their tribe's fish commission, and they received the award for environmental innovation and for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Their BLAST program, which stands for Ballard Lock's Adult Sockeye Transport Program, has improved sockeye salmon survival in the Lake Washington and Ship Canal migration corridor. Their achievements include initiating BLAST in 2021 and with repeats in 2022 and 2023, which resulted in a reduction of pre-spawn mortality from 80% for salmon that are going through the natural transit through Lake Washington migration corridor down to 1% for those salmon that are transported via BLAST and go to a hatchery in Issaquah, Washington. The salmon are a cultural and subsistence element of the Muckleshoot tribe and other indigenous and minority populations in Washington, and efforts to preserve and enhance salmon runs are critical in addressing environmental sustainability, equity, and justice goals in the state and region.
Can I ask for a pause real quick? Commissioner Fellman has a quick question.
I know about the Flume project up in Fraser River where they push the salmon through.
Oh, yeah.
What is BLAST? What are they physically doing?
They are taking them by truck. They take them from the Ballard Locks, and they take them up to the hatchery in Issaquah. So they're trucking salmon to get them around the Lake Washington corridor.
So like they do with dams and stuff like that? Hope
What's
they're
that?
electric trucks. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's really a dam aversion thing like they do.
It avoids having them having to swim through the Lake Washington corridor, Ship Canal, Lake Washington, where the water quality and the temperatures are affecting their mortality. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess we're, sure.
They do that because the water temperatures and the conditions are affecting their mortality, not the dams themselves.
Correct. They're capturing them at the Ballard locks because that's a convenient place to capture them.
I see.
Yeah. And then they transfer them by truck. So they're bypassing having to swim through the urban waterway that is represented by Lake Washington. Yeah.
But swimming through the locks themselves or through the fish passage, there is, scale damages going through that. I know they have to paint the things to smooth out. It's a tiny little opening. It's a feeding day for the sea lions. Getting them out of there for any number of reasons helps with survival.
Executive Director Metric?
I just want, and we're doing it at the Maritime Industrial Center, right? Is that where they're doing it? Are they loading there?
They're loading at the Ballard locks, and
Oh, at the locks?
they
Or
use,
the-
yeah, they do have staging at Maritime Industrial
Okay.
Center for their boats, and also they use Fisherman's Terminal to help support their work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The next award is, next slide, is for environmental education and outreach, and this is going to Quiet Sound for success in working across public and private sectors to institute an effective voluntary slowdown for large commercial vessels through Admiralty Inlet between Whidbey Island and the Olympic Peninsula, which helps reduce underwater noise. Their achievements include reducing underwater noise in Puget Sound, a problem recognized as a key impediment to the survival of southern resident killer whales, along with low availability of Chinook salmon and poor water quality. Data show that 70% of vessel transits through the slowdown area decrease their speed, resulting in a 45% reduction in sound intensity during the season that the slowdown was instituted. The success of this program is due largely to the engagement plan and thoughtful integration into existing institutions that manage vessel traffic in Puget Sound. And our last maritime award, next slide, is recognizing small business stormwater controls for environmental innovation. Stormwater Controls is inventor and distributor of a modular stormwater filtration product called Retain Drain. Their achievements include invention and manufacture of the Retain Drain in the Pacific Northwest, a system that uses coconut core filters, a renewable resource, in a high-quality metal frame to remove litter and other contaminants from stormwater before it enters the Salish Sea. Stormwater controls data show as much as 95% reduction of organic matter, solids, and trash in stormwater after passing through Retain Drain. So that concludes the maritime side. I will pass to my colleague, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Executive Director Metric, Jeremy Webb, Aviation Environmental Programs. I'll be covering the aviation-based awards for Sustainable Century this year. First up, we'll go with our nomination-based awards, where folks submit their nominations based on their accomplishments and achievements. And first up today is Alaska Airlines. We'll be recognizing them in the Environmental Performance and Innovation category for two things. Essentially, the first one is eliminating single-use plastics and creating an innovative carbon offset program. Back in 23, Alaska became the first U.S. airline to replace onboard single-use plastic cups with paper cups, eliminating nearly 55,000 cups annually. This is certainly in line and supports our waste reduction principles at the airport, and we certainly support Alaska for making this transition towards more sustainable packaging options. Secondly, they created a partnership with Choose, Choose with 3 O's, to allow passengers the opportunity to buy innovative carbon offsets and actually tailor their selection between SAF credits and natural climate-based solutions. This was a particularly unique arrangement to really highlight the benefits of SAF within the aviation industry and the importance. And what's really neat about this program is they actually promoted it by providing elite qualifying mileage up to 500 miles and I think a 5,000 mile cap for every $100 in SAF credits purchased. And through doing that, they sold over 500,000 gallons equivalent of SAF credits, which is 5 times more than they expected to sell. And it reduced their emissions by roughly 4,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we're really excited for that. Next slide. Next up is Condor Airlines. Now, they're one of the smaller carriers at the airport, and as you'll hear later on today, they don't qualify for our measurement-based award for quiet, fuel-efficient aircraft. Those need to have at least 5,000 operations. They have closer to 400, but nonetheless, they are an industry leader in terms of rapid transition towards fuel-efficient and quiet aircraft. In 22, they announced their transition plans, and through 23 and up into 2024, they'll replace all their entire medium, short, and long-haul fleet with modern, quiet, and fuel-efficient aircraft that produce 20% less carbon, 50% less noise, and consume 20% less fuel. Specifically at Sea-Tac Airport, between 2022 and 2023, they went from 0% use of these modern fuel-efficient aircraft up to 81%, which is a significant achievement, and we find this a great opportunity to highlight this accomplishment for others to emulate. Next slide. Yeah, shifting over, we have a concessionaire, McDonald's, operating within Sea-Tac Airport. They're being recognized with an award for environmental performance in their transition towards electrifying their restaurant at SEA Airport. So prior to this, they ran much of their heating and cooking equipment on natural gas. In this refurbishment, they replaced all of these products or all of these equipment items with electric options, eliminating 10,700 therms of natural gas, reducing emissions by 57 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And one of the big things that we found was really fascinating about this is they really instilled confidence in our airport dining and retail team that we could move towards a requirement within our Concourse C expansion, which is coming up soon, that will basically require all of the concessions operating there to use only electric cooking. So another opportunity to further reduce our dependence on natural gas. Next slide. Concessions International is our next award winner in the Environmental Performance and Innovation category for achieving the first US GBC LEED certifications for SEA restaurants. So at Salty's at the Sea and Brewtop Social in 2023, they both achieved this certification. The key features cover energy efficiency, recycled content, toxics-free HVAC systems, green cleaning and waste diversion. Some of their highlights include reducing their lighting power by nearly half. Nearly 3/4 of their equipment is Energy Star rated items, and then using other methods for environmental documentation for building products and other details, including reducing 50% of their construction waste. And before we go to the next slide, we also have an honorable mention to mention this year. It's not included in the slides, but it should be in your memo details. Uber, once again, is being recognized just as an honorable mention for their efforts to grow EV usage at the airport and expand EV access for drivers. Just a couple of key highlights for their achievements. They increased their use of EVs by about 180% over last year. And I believe 76% of all trips coming to and from the airport were completed either using a zero-emission vehicle or a hybrid. They mentioned some other items too, and those are included in the memo as well. Next slide. So shifting over to our measurement-based awards. So these are the awards we use to highlight some of the carriers we have at the airport for efforts to reduce emissions by either tying into our ground systems so they can plug in and turn off their emissions and stop burning fuel, or for flying more fuel-efficient modern aircraft. The first award for the greatest use of airport ground power and preconditioned air systems goes to Southwest Airlines. Once again, Southwest continues to be one of the fastest, most consistent users of our ground power and preconditioned air systems. For ground power, they connect 94% of the time, stay connected 77% of the time, and turn around within 2 minutes to get there when they make those connections. On the preconditioned air side, 56% of operations connect. Nearly 3/4 of them stay connected for 3/4 of the time, and the fastest time to connect is about 7 minutes on average. So just another kudos to Southwest for their quick use of our ground power and preconditioned air systems. Next slide. This award goes to Delta Airlines for the highest percentage of fuel-efficient aircraft. Last year in 2023, they used 40% of all their operations using highly fuel-efficient and quiet aircraft. These are all the Airbus A321neos and other Airbus aircraft, the modern versions. And this compares favorably to the next highest performer, who achieved close to 28%. Again, this is a significant accomplishment for Delta, both in terms of reducing emissions, but also in terms of reducing noise. Next slide. And with that, we will transition over to Paris Edwards and the Fly Quiet Awards program.
Thank you, Jeremy, and good afternoon, Commissioners. And I will quickly go over Fly Quiet Awards and present the winners. And thank you, Executive Director Metric, for the little introduction there. So Fly Quiet, as you did hear before, Fly Quiet was implemented in 2005 as part of the Part 150 update that was completed in 2002. And really, Fly Quiet is developed by Port Seattle staff and advisory committee to really bring awareness to the airlines and as well as the pilots as to impact of noise impacts in the communities. Fly Quiet then encourages airline compliance through flight procedures as well as aircraft noise levels. And then from there, we recognize 2 airlines that are winners, and then the third is given to the most improved. Next slide, please. So we'll start with Air Canada, which is really our top Fly Quiet scoring airline for 2023. And I just want to highlight one of the bullet points here is that this is their second consecutive year of winning the Fly Quiet Award. Next slide, please. And then Frontier Airlines, significantly lower takeoff noise than other domestic carriers in 2023. And another highlight here is this bullet. This is their 5th Fly Quiet Award. Next slide, please. And finally, we have Delta Airlines as our most improved. So I want to highlight a couple of bullet points here that in 2022, 24% of Delta's operation included Airbus 220, 321neo, 330 aircraft. These are all very efficient aircraft, quiet, as well as fuel efficient. In 2023, this percentage increased to 40% of their total operations. And they're also a contributor to our Seattle stakeholder, yep, you know. So, and with that, that is our winners, and I'll pass it back to Jeremy.
Thanks, Paris. Just a parting nod, as mentioned earlier, we have an awards luncheon coming up on May 30th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. at the Airport Conference Center. We look forward to celebrating with all of our awardees and executive leadership and distributing the awards to them. So that's in just over 2 weeks' time at the Airport Conference Center. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
We're arguing over whether we can ask questions.
Thank you for the presentation and congratulations to all of the awardees. Commissioner Felleman, you have the floor.
I guess I won. I just want to say thank you. This is a huge effort. I still don't know who all the judges are, but obviously it takes a lot of time to weed through all these folks. I have a kind of suspicion I know some of them. But the thing I did bring up was, well, first of all, the use of shore power and conditioned air. I mean, I thought we were going through some technical efforts to figure out how to really verify that. So verifying the fact that we're giving awards on it is interesting to me. I imagine it's kind of a bit of a technical challenge, but I'm really interested in the night flights. And so I saw in all the Fly Quiet awards that the compliance with night flights was not specifically a recognition of any of the awardees. So I know it's one of the things that made into the overall compliance to get a Fly Quiet award, but when you talk about the individuals, their nighttime compliance was not one of the highlights. Now, none of them are air cargo. I assume more of the evening flights are air cargo, but I may be mistaken. I need to know who's the next we need to lean on. Or encourage, I meant.
Encourage. I would say that we do have a couple of cargo carriers that need to be encouraged, but we also do inform them through our late night noise limitation program of their exceedances. I don't know if I want to say the airlines.
I put you in a horrible spot, right?
Yeah,
I'm
kind of.
sorry about that. Maybe, but the fact of the matter is we did raise the question about being able to acknowledge those who need to be the most improved. And so it's not your fault, but the fact is that this was something that the commission asked to have included in the presentation.
I try to get them and I ask these questions.
All right, so, I mean, it is something that we had Kyle Moore present on. It's something that we know the community tells us all the time, and nobody's being recognized for complying with it. It suggests to me that we need to put some emphasis on it, and maybe Sandy's going to bail you out of having to be asked such a pointed question.
I thought she was walking out.
I don't know. I would just say we're happy to provide you with a list of those airlines. It is public information, so we certainly can do that.
All right, thank you very much. And I apologize, the Norwegian Innovations Summit is occurring in the Nordic Heritage Museum, and the folks I was just with at Sweden are there, so I will have to excuse myself. Thank you very much for the awardees. Congratulations, and thank you for all your work.
You're going virtual, right?
And I will
plug in.
And I will be monitoring from afar.
So I don't. Yeah, so I don't lose quorum. Please log on.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, let's hear it for those awardees.
Any additional questions or comments? Again, hats off to all the awardees, and thank you all for the presentation and your hard work to present this information to us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Great. Clerk Hart, please read the next item into the record, and then Executive Director Metrick will introduce the item.
Thank you. This is agenda item 11C, the International Public Market Final Report.
Commissioners, in March of last year, you provided authorization to enter into a memorandum of understanding with King County to move forward collaboratively with a feasibility study for the international public market concept. That MOU resulted in this final report on current market conditions, market attributes, cost projections, and feasibility of this idea. To present the results of this report this afternoon are Dave McFadden, Managing Director, Economic Development Division, Annie Tran, Economic Development Manager, Ashton Allison, Economic Development and Economic Recovery Director for King County Executive's Office, and Susano Surface, Executive Analyst, King County Executive's Office. So with that, I believe, Dave, I'm going to turn over you to kick us off.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Executive Director Metrick. Let's get the next slide going. Our international public market feasibility study was a project, almost a year in the making, and it took a year to get done. And we're pleased to share the results of this feasibility study with you today. I appreciate our partnership with King County, with Ashton and Susanna. We did good work together. I also appreciate this advisory committee that we had that helped guide the project along the way. The goals were really to see if a market was feasible, whether a market would attract visitors and tourists near the Sea-Tac airport, provide a gathering space, and support economic development. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over. Oh, I'll go to the next slide and I'll just talk the timelines. I forgot myself for a moment. As you can see, we started last March, and really the first phase was something we did purely engagement, community outreach, and analyze the local market, and just in terms of, will it support a market? And Annie will cover that, and then we'll turn it over to Susanna and Ashton take us home through the second phase, which really looked at the numbers, the models, the sites, the details around the feasibility of our specific ideas. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to my Economic Development Manager, Annie Tran.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dave. Next, this is perfect. And so as Dave mentioned, the first phase was surrounded around community engagement, understanding the current market conditions, and this included significant community engagement, which was completed in many forums, as you can see here, in the forms of surveys, interviews with local stakeholders, in-person engagement events, and facilitated in-language discussions with a number of partners in the South King County. And in 3 short weeks, we're very proud of this, we were able to collect more than 900 survey responses from potential vendors and residents in King County. The survey was also made available in 3 different languages, and this helped, provide intel into some of the understandings of just what the current market conditions are and what some of the needs are. Notably, more than 80% of survey respondents reported confirmed interest in having an international public market in either Sea-Tac or Tequila. And given the high response rate to our survey, it does closely mirror King County's racial and demographic makeup. And so it did produce a very statistically significant survey, which made us feel confident in a lot of this outreach that was performed. As Dave mentioned, we did engage an advisory committee made up of 20 members, which President Mohammed was co-chair of, including King County Council member Dave Upthegrove, which also included business owners, community-based organizations, city economic development folks, as well as other electeds. And they were hugely instrumental in helping us share these engagement opportunities to make sure as many people were heard during this period. Next slide. So as part of this survey, there was also a portion where folks can include their preferred site and location of this concept. And as you can see here, there was an option for write-in suggestions. Tequila, Burien, and Sea-Tac are among the top areas. And I think also it's important to note that site features such as parking, safety, and public transit access were also top priorities for this concept. While 60% of folks did cite that they would use a personal vehicle to get to this market, we thought that, in terms of engaging tourism and local visitors, public transportation is also hugely important. Next slide, please. And from the survey response, we heard from vendors, as mentioned, businesses, and just the greater, wider community. Some things that we heard was that there's a need for retail and production space in King County. This concept could provide varied retail spaces for folks, as well as business support systems for them, and then just overall a wonderful community gathering space that folks can turn to in terms of tourism and local tourism. And I will hand it off to Ashton, who will present. Next slide. Yep, Ashton will provide an understanding of just what we did in phase 2.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you, commissioners, for having us here today, and Executive Director Metric. As Dave mentioned, phase 2 was our concept and development models phase, during which we defined market attributes and completed a site analysis. And developed concept models, operational models, and evaluated financial models. These activities yielded 4 concept models and a pro forma operating projections, which my colleague Susanna will talk about here in a few minutes. But first, I want to talk about the site evaluations portion of phase 2. Next slide, please. So an important note here is the objective of the site evaluation exercise was not to identify a single site nor to decide where the facility would be located following this study, but rather to answer 2 important questions, which were, are there compatible sites to support an international public market in the study area? And number 2, which of the identified sites is most compatible with the concept models in development? So the matrix you see on the screen shows the top 13 sites of 31 submissions that were received by our consultant for consideration. Submissions could include vacant land, developable parcels, or existing structures. So these sites were evaluated and ranked on a number of qualitative and quantitative criteria, some of which you see listed on the left-hand side of your screen. And as you can see at the top, the best possible score was a 25, and the lowest possible score was a 75. You'll see that all 3 cities under consideration had sites with scores under 40 in the top 5 rankings, with Tequila holding the top 2 spots, followed by Sea-Tac and Burien. Again, just want to mention that this analysis was not meant to decide which site or sites would be developed after the study, but yet rather gave us a more refined information to proceed onto the concept development stage to help inform sizing and design. Susanna?
Thank you. And next slide, please. So before diving right into this Model A, I'd like to give a bit of background across all 4 of the sites that you will be seeing. They are sort of combined programmatic, operational, architectural, and financial models. And to keep this moving quickly, I'll just share what they all have in common programmatically. They will have some amount of anchor food or retail space, as well as pop-up and flexible food and retail space. These will be supported by kitchen and cold, dry storage spaces that would be shared amongst all the vendors. Each will have some form of event, gathering, or community space, and as previously stated, there will be some expectation of sufficient transit, parking, and safety considerations. The differences will be articulated as we review each model, and I would also like to note that you will see a wide range of costs across these models in terms of their upfront investment and development costs. There will also be very distinct financial, sustainability, and operating implications. So here we have Model A. This is a solo investment. It is distinguished by really one of these government entities leading it as a project, having all of the features stated above, plus some additional office spaces for the operations of the building, coming in at $53.7 million for 114K square feet. Next slide, please. Model B has all of these spaces as noted in Model A, that it is a partner with not only the full market program, but also some additional to-be-determined partner spaces, which are the orange floor plans on the lower left of the diagram. And certainly, if there were to be a partner site, the partner would be determined through some process in the future. And this would allow for significantly expanded usage of the site, also determined by the community engagement process, where numerous community members indicated that in addition to a market, they would love to see it coupled with things such as childcare, retail, office, et cetera. Total development cost of Model B, $112 million for 181,000 square feet. So it is both higher cost and physically larger with more options than Model A. Next slide, please. Model C is a very simplified architectural structure. It contains smaller amounts of all of the programming listed prior. Does not include office space, and it is distinguished by a large, flexible event, gathering, pop-up, et cetera, type of space. With the simplified structure and simplified programming and site features, it is a development cost of $44 million for 78,000 square feet, so it is physically smaller and has fewer retail activities going on within it, but the same ones that were proposed previously. Next slide, please. Model D is similar to Model C, and that is somewhat the limited programming, although it does have all of the primary market features, but this would be taking place in some existing facility. So the floor plan diagram is a bit of a misnomer, because this could potentially be in any shaped building large enough to accommodate the necessary program features. This existing model comes in at $28.5 million for 37,000 square feet, so it is projected to be significantly smaller in footprint than other models. Next slide, please. And so here we compare the models side by side, and I'd like to direct the focus to the profit and loss break-even budgets across the models. Is it all right to speak over the train? Yes. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it would register for the online viewers. So the two models in this comparison that break even are actually the two highest cost models, Model A, the solo full market program, and the Model B, the partner market program. Model A is projected to break even in year 4, so there are several years upfront of startup cost when then it hits break even and has potential profit after that. Model B is expected to break even all years, so right away, and profit is possible at all years. So while carrying the highest price tag, it also has the greatest opportunity for financial sustainability. That said, it also requires quite intricate partnership to be determined in the future. Model C and Model D, the projections indicate that despite their lower upfront investment costs, would require ongoing investment and would be dependent on higher utilization of the footprint to achieve its baseline stability. So I would like to emphasize that we do not currently sit with a preference for any one of these models. In different scenarios, each of them could be viable or could be the best option. More research and development would be required to make a recommendation, but there are distinct differences between these four. And I'll now pass it back to Dave, I believe.
Yes.
Thank
Next
you.
slide, please. So, given the number of sites and buildings identified in the feasibility study, it's going to take us a while, along with our stakeholders, to determine which site and market option is most feasible. So you've got like 3 cities, you've got four different models, and you've got multitude of sites. So if you do the math, you could have 60 different options that the cities might consider. What we also know is the cost of developing is beyond our individual capacity, and I think also our partners. So this is going to take a team approach and a variety of funding sources to develop a marketplace. While we can help fund the project, we would probably most likely have to tie our support to a marketplace that supports and drives tourism per our state statutes. What I'd like to do is turn it back over to Ashton to talk about his conditions or financial context and finish up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Well, in contrast to the port, and perhaps complementary in this case, the county has flexibility to fund different types of projects that demonstrate public benefit, but in this case, our most flexible funding sources are currently constrained, as you may know. So we want to be certain that we are, using the source that makes the most sense, or sources in this case, and that those are complementary with the port. So we agreed from the beginning and signaled to the cities and advisory council that the city that is chosen or kind of self-identifies to host the marketplace should be able to offer some type of financing support for the overall project. Next slide, please. So this is a breakdown of our high-level next steps. So later this month, and next month actually, we will be briefing each of these city councils on the study, as well as asking the cities to determine which site and market model works best for them. And from that point, the port and county will discuss options with those interested cities and kind of land on a single commitment from one city. So that decision will obviously dictate the funding and support from the other partners, the port and county, obviously, and then we will move forward from there.
I think that concludes our presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Both Commissioner Hasagawa and I were saying that we've received this presentation recently, but still have questions that come up for us.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say thank you to our King County partners for joining us in this effort, and also Director McFadden for taking this on. I think it was really just like a unique sort of idea when we initially decided that maybe we should study this and see what is possible, and I just really appreciate the thought that has went into this and making sure that this report was finalized. And I also really appreciated the advisory committee and co-chairing. It was really helpful to just hear the public's opinions and thinking on what they wanted to see for their community. And you guys engaged the advisory committee throughout the whole time, which was just a beautiful process to witness. We're at the end of it, but I think the excitement starts now to see who is going to be the city or the entity that puts their hand up and says, we want to take this on. And so I'm curious to see what happens next. I wanted to check in on the Angle Lake site. So that's the actual parking lot of where the light rail is, correct?
I believe it's the parking lot across from the park itself.
From the park itself.
Yeah, and I could provide a more detailed map from our consultants too, if that helps.
So is that like across from, there's the light rail station, there's the actual park, so it's somewhere in between there?
Yes, I believe it's from where the Angle Lake Park is. I believe it's across from that, the park itself. It's across the street from it. But I will have, our consultants did a lot of this research, and they have a more detailed, like, parcel layout of it, and we can report back to you on that if you'd like.
Yeah, I would like that. And then just knowing, like, how did the city react to that? Like, how did these cities react to, you know, including them as potential site locations?
Can I jump in?
Go ahead. You
Okay.
start, yeah.
Well, they were, the economic development team from Sea-Tac, Berrien, and Tequila were actively engaged in this process and actually provided our consultants and us guided tours of these sites. And so they had come up with these identified parcels as well as gleaning from the survey that was also produced and culminated a long list of potential sites. So I hope that answers some of your questions about how the sites were identified and the level of engagement the city partners had.
Yeah, thank you. That would be helpful. Commissioner Hasegawa?
All right, so this is really exciting to me. I mean, it tells me that it definitely could happen, but we absolutely need a local champion. And, you know, the JAC might be an appropriate place to also provide this presentation, maybe the Highline Forum, or maybe just in one-off conversations with the cities or their representatives. But I want to echo and emphasize what President Mohammed mentioned about Angle Lake parking lot. I mean, I think about folks getting off of the light rail from the airport or from, you know, anywhere, and just being able to walk right into this amazing market. I also get excited thinking about that as like a small business hub, and it, for me, dovetails with another presentation we just received in the Equity Workforce Development Committee around the prospect of having a brick and mortar childcare facility either at or nearby along the commute line for SCA employees. That would be easy, and so I wonder about the potential space opportunities there. You know, right off of light rail station would be ideal for that as well. So that's a separate conversation, but how exciting if it could be a related conversation. I think we want to know, and as a follow-up to this, what these cities are saying, specifically Tequila, Sea-Tac, and Berrien as potential sites for a market. And there's so much already in the mix in conversation with Sea-Tac, in particular around economic development and shared opportunities. I really wonder what might be able to happen out of JAC. So yeah, I'm staying tuned. Congratulations, including to President Mohammed, who had the vision for this, and all of you who have put in so many hours, because I think this could be just a really wonderful thing for community members to enjoy.
Thank you, Commissioner Hasegawa. McFadden, I wanted to ask Director McFadden, the Maritime Innovation Center.
Yes.
There's obviously like a clear nexus why we did that to our RCW and how it's written. I do wonder if for this international market, is there a nexus that could be made with tourism and the airport in particular, if the Angle Lake site ended up being the site that maybe the city of Sea-Tac went after? Do you see a partnership, or am I now stepping into Pete Rommel's?
Well, I can, I guess.
He's gonna all show up virtually.
Answer the question in the way I heard it answered, okay, which is the closer it is to the airport, the easier it is to make the argument that it'll attract travelers and tourists. So the answer would be yes. If it's in that Angle Lake area or close proximate to the airport, I think we can make a case that if they build it, that there will be visitors and travelers from the airport that go there.
Yeah, and I wonder with some of the SAMP projects that are happening, there are some opportunities for economic development that's included in that. I do wonder if there's some overlap in that, but kind of getting ahead of myself on that one. Yeah, I think this is exciting. I do look forward to us being able to engage the cities. Are you all going to do some sort of public information session? I have gotten a lot of community members have reached out to me who are interested in receiving the report, and especially like the potential sites. And so I don't know is there going to be a virtual meeting or something that's going to happen?
I think I'd like to work with external relations on those details. We have posted, we've sent out and distributed the site to anybody that was on our advisory committee or a stakeholder that showed interest. We've got it on our website. Our first priority is to go brief the councils. As we mentioned, that's going to take June and July. After that, I think we're open to, have an open house, whatever may make sense at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even just flagging when you guys are doing those presentations in those different cities. So if the public wants to attend one of those specifically, if they're from that community, I think that would be a good idea. Yeah. Well, thank you again for the presentation. Oh, Commissioner Fellman. He actually did join after all.
Of course. Yeah, I stayed on listening, and it was very interesting. I know that this was a near and dear project for President Mohammed, so I was very much interested in. Sorry for having to do it in transit, and I arrived just in time for seeing Stephanie Mine be part of the Sustainable Aviation Committee. But I just wanted to offer up the Highland Forum as a great entity, and a chair of that. And I think it's the right communities that would be interested in getting a full presentation. So if you wanted to do a repeat performance for the Highland Forum, I would love to try to schedule it.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Fellman, for offering that. I agree. I think that would be a good place to catch all those elected officials at once.
Great.
Thank you again for the presentation. I want to thank King County again for being here, and Councilmember Dave Updegrove, who also championed this item as well. And so thank you all for the presentation. Great. Thank you. Moving us along, well, this concludes our business meeting agenda for the day. Are there any closing comments at this time or motions related to committee referrals from commissioners? Commissioner Hasagawa.
Last Friday, we had a visit from President Joe Biden through our gateway, and I had the honor of getting to greet him on the tarmac and watch Air Force One come in alongside Governor Inslee, Executive Constantine, and Mayor Harrell, and just shake his hand, introduce myself, and thank him for what he's doing with the FAA authorization bill. Yeah, it was an amazing life experience, and thank you so much for the opportunity to do that. And and it made me really proud to be able to step into that role in that space. It was a responsibility and was a privilege. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to wish everybody a very happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. There are so many stories from so many people from over 40 countries, I think 48 different countries across the world, across Asia and the Pacific. I think I look forward to participating in a number of panels that are happening over the lunch hour over the next 2 weeks. Thank you to Happy for coordinating some of those. And I look forward to participating.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Hasagawa, for those comments. I also just wanted to quickly share, we've been hosting Budget 101 sessions in the public recently. We've held 2 of those, in one of them at Tabor 100, and then the other one at El Centro de la Raza. And we're holding our last Budget 101 at Green River College on the 16th. That's this Thursday. At 6 p.m. and I encourage the public to participate. It's a great way to understand how the port's budget works and also to learn about the South King County Impact Fund. And so for anyone in the public who's interested in participating in that, I would encourage you to attend. That concludes my comments. Executive Director Metrick, do you have any closing comments for the day?
President Mohammed, I don't. I see Commissioner Fellman just popped up on the screen here. I didn't know if he had something, but I do not have any additional comments. I thank for the Commissioner's attention on the items and the action that we took today. I really appreciate that, and thanks for your feedback on those other issues that we presented today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Metric. Commissioner Fellman.
I just wanted to note that I meant to say during the awards, I would like very much, I've been interested in looking at our Responsible Traveler program and the ability to look at SAF as well as programs that directly benefit the community surrounding the airport. And I'd like to see if we can explore, see what other flexibility it might provide for our Responsible Traveler program. So I appreciate Alaska being recognized for it, but it's exactly the kind of thing that I was hoping to explore and ask that we put some attention to that. But anyway, thank you again. I'm going to go catch Stephanie so I can sign off without ruining your quorum, right?
Thank you. So I just wanted to make a quick note for the record. Commissioner Ryan Calkins was absent today for today's meeting, but he was excused, and so I just want to make sure that we note that for the record. So hearing no further comments and having no further business, if there is no objections, we are adjourned, and the time is now 3:47 p.m. Thank you all.